Good morning, everybody. Good evening, everybody. It's February 8th, our regular February commission meeting. Would you please call the roll?
Good evening, Mayor O'Happen,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
I'm here.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner Hammelberg, Commissioner Samaria.
Yeah.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, Commissioner Samaria, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah, him saying.
Any additions, deletions, or withdrawals to the agenda? We have
I have a couple of things.
one, 10A, to move from our manager to move it to the March calendar, 10A. Vice Mayor Kennedy?
We're gonna have a big discussion tonight on the right-of-way topic, and I'm gonna guess some of the residents that are here and perhaps on Zoom, I haven't looked to see who is there, may want to participate in that discussion to some way at that point. So I'm wondering if we might consider allowing people to make comment about swales and rights-of-way topics during public comment, but also give them an opportunity then, because we're taking a big swing at that topic tonight. There's a lot of stuff on the backup, and some people might want to say something then. So if you guys want to consider that, yeah, exactly. So if you guys want to consider that, I think that might be a nice thing to do for residents who have prepared some comments. The short-term rental item that's on the agenda, it's here for first reading. I think Dave Caserta is going to address this as well. There's some bills at the state level that may impact our ability to include some of the things that we have in there, licensing, for example, which is a big part of what we're doing. And if some things pass in a couple of months, it's going to nullify, I'm not sure if that's the right word, Valerie, but some of the things in our ordinance, and we would have to remove them or they wouldn't be enforceable. We may want to consider pulling that item and saving that conversation and wait and see what the state does, so we don't waste time and money having.
I was going to say that we should pass it on the first reading, and then we'll decide whether we're putting it on forward, because by that time, we'll delay it until the legislature.
Right, but then if they make changes, and based on what we saw in Dave Caserta's report to us, they could be substantial changes. Then we would be in the position of making very substantial changes to an ordinance at second reading. We can do it. I spoke with Valerie about this. We can certainly do it. It just doesn't make me really comfortable pushing something through, knowing that we might be making some really very substantial changes to it at second reading. I don't think that's necessarily a good practice. We catch things at first and second reading and make changes. I don't think it's a good practice to do when you have the ability to look ahead and see that it's likely, and it looks pretty likely. Dave's going to discuss it. So I would support pulling that and just pressing pause on that item until we get more information from the state.
I'll ask the other commissioners what they think on that, and also allowing the public to speak on the swale. Commissioner Samaria, what?
You're talking about 10B, Commissioner Kennedy? Can you give the item number?
10C is the.
And 10B is in boy.
10
10B and 10C as they run together.
I don't think 10, actually, I think 10C can continue, couldn't it, Valerie? It's a
10C.
separate thing. 10B is the one that I'm referring to. 10C could move forward. That wouldn't be impacted, correct? Ed's nodding yes.
Talking about.
Yeah.
So
So 10C is in Charlie, we could keep, but B is the one I'm talking about. B
My
is in boy.
question to the attorney, I know you can't predict what the legislation going to do. Is it going to make that much of a difference if we pull it now, and how long will the process take? I don't want to drag this all the way on to election time.
The legislature has considered similar bills for the past 5 or 6 years, I think. I think last year they might have even passed it and the governor vetoed. I know at one time that he had done that. So it's just speculative on what it is. If you want to wait till after the session so that we can see what the law currently is, we'll have it ready for first reading at the next meeting.
Okay.
So we're far enough along now, we could move forward quickly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, if, as long as, I mean, I don't have a problem with pulling the item and having it brought back for the March meeting, but I don't want to go past that because this has been going so long.
Well, legislation won't be done until basically May.
And right, and with the time the governor has to sign, to sign or veto any
June.
bills, it may even be to June.
Okay, so I have no problem moving this 10B to the March meeting.
Can, as a procedural item, Mario, can we sort of decide now in theory to take it off and then wait and have this conversation again after Dave Caserta gives his opinion during his report to us? Could we still at that point say, yeah, based on what Dave said, let's take it off or let's keep it on, or do we have to do it now?
You can wait until until the item is actually up and make a decision.
Oh, we could even do it then. Then why don't we wait until we see what Dave has to say? I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. I didn't know if you had read his report and it included something relevant. I spoke with him about it and Valerie, so maybe we should just wait until Dave speaks. You guys okay with that?
I don't have a problem with that, so we'll hold that one to go on to the agenda when it passes in the legislature, or
I think we just decided we wait and see what Dave has to say and then we could make the decision. What about
what
allowing?
about opening up for the swale discussion? Commissioner Samaria?
If you do it for this one, then you have to do it for every single one. Public has a chance to comment on the swale item, any public comment.
Okay, Commissioner Hammelberg? Should we open up the floor to discussion on the swale?
Well, I think you need to limit it to 3 minutes, but also it's open for the public to comment at the beginning. So I don't know that we need to do more than that.
What about you, Commissioner?
I'm fine with allowing the public to speak, given 3 minutes, additional 3 minutes. I'm fine with that. It's a big topic.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm sorry if I can,
About the 3 minutes.
Additional 3 minutes to the, Yeah.
Sorry?
an additional 3 minutes to speak up. It's a big topic. So I'm good with allowing them to speak another 3 minutes later
3
on.
minutes
Yes.
only.
Yeah. They have 3 minutes for public comments and then they can have 3 minutes
Oh,
during the discussion.
okay. Okay, we'll allow that. Okay, are there any other additions and deletions? All in favor of the two? Say aye.
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 Okay. Our first order of business will be the proclamation of our dear friend Mylan. Whereas it is with great honor that the Village of Biscayne Park Village Commission recognizes the retirement of Mylan Nugent, Administrative Clerk. For more than 10 years of proven dedication, loyalty, and renowned service to the village staff and the citizens of Biscayne Park. And Miss Gwen began her exemplary career with Biscayne Park on September 27th, 2010, as an administrative clerk. Through the years, she has assisted staff with professionalism, integrity, and legendary compassion for more than 10 years. And throughout her tenure, was often recognized as a highly capable and thoroughly efficient employee, routinely referred to as the backbone of Biscayne Park. For more than 10 years, she has maintained cash management collected from customer transactions, invoices, payroll, and benefit documents, official correspondence, and much, much more. And she will retire on March 1st, 2022. Her sincere, conscious efforts and dedicated service dramatically impacted the men and women of Biscayne Park and significantly benefited the residents and visitors of Biscayne Park. Be it herefore resolved that the City Commission of Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, the genuine and sincere gratitude is hereby expressed for the professional, loyalty, and selfless efforts as the administrative clerk, Ms. Mylan Gwen, during her 10-year tenure of service. Be it resolved by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of Village of Biscayne Park, I do proclaim February 8th as Mrs. Mylan Gwen's Day.
Commissioners, if we can have a picture in the front. We don't have those.
Okay, we'll have a legislative update by Mr. Caserta. David?
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioner, as we introduce David to give a quick update of what's going on in Tallahassee and how you'll see in the attachment, there's 40 pages worth of bills, and many of those have significant impact on how municipal government will operate, even from a day-to-day function. With that, as I've reported several times to the commission, we've applied for state appropriation funds of $350,000 to assist with storm drain projects that we have in our building throughout the community. So David will give a quick update on our bills and where we stand with that appropriation request. And then I've asked him to highlight some of the other bills. 40 pages is way too much, but there are some very key ones that are going through right now. And so I've asked him to address those. David?
Thank you very much, Mario, and good evening, Mayor and Commission. It's great to be here. I'm actually up in Tallahassee as we speak, just got out of the committee meetings today. And Mario is correct. Obviously, each year, as you know, the legislature finds its way to engage in as many bills against municipal government, county government as it can. So we're always up here battling with these issues. And because there are so many of them, as you saw in my report, we all usually like to team up together with the Florida League of Cities. They use us, we work with them to address all of these issues. And, we've been around long enough to know what's not good and what's good for a community. And so when I present these bills, the intention is just to give you an update on what's going on, where they're at, the condition. And in some cases, some of the commissioners and the mayor might have an interest in one or two specifically. And so what I would ask is if you do have an interest in some of the ones that you see there, call me, send me a note, and I will go ahead and get a detailed response back to you based on where they are in the process and what we've been doing. But as Mary had mentioned, what I could do right now is I identified in the report some of the bills that are moving through the process right now that have an impact on us. And I'm just going to highlight a few. And if anybody wants me to expand, let me know, and then I'll get a written note out to either Mario or the commissioner or the mayor, whoever is inquiring. One of the bills that you saw on the list was the sovereign immunity bill. Obviously, we've been opposed that Senate Bill 974. And today, what has happened was initially that bill had a 200, 300 per claim and 300, 400 thereafter. And now recently was amended today to be a 1 million per claim and 3 million per incident, which increases. And obviously that's not good for anybody in a municipality or a county with those kind of numbers. But what it does is it basically sets the cap beginning January 1st of 2023, and then every 10 years thereafter resets them. So that's what they've somewhat come to an agreement with on the Senate side so far. And there are other details involved that the amendment waives the statute of limitations for certain sexual battery cases where the victim was under the age of 16. They have the effective date of the bill will remain October 2022, and removes language that applies to increased waiver caps to claims that accrue on or after that. The House, what they did was they took the $1 million claim, but no aggregate. So that's where they are. So as you can see, at this point in the game, both sides are going to have differences in their bills, and we're fighting and trying to get the best that we can, taking a look at what bills are going to pass no matter what, and try to do the best that we can to try to limit the exposure. And so we're working on that. You might see 1 million, 3 million now, but that might change, towards the end and drop significantly. We got the local ordinances of Senate Bill 280 and House Bill 403, and that basically changed the legal standards and process used by the courts to assess the validity of municipal ordinances, and imposes a new requirements on municipalities for adopting and enforcing local ordinances. So the bill requires a municipality now to prepare a business impact statement before adopting ordinances. And when I say it's still in progress, it's not something that's been passed or that the governor has signed, but that's what it does. But it's critical to know that it is, as they mentioned, just an estimate, which is required for the fiscal impact statement. So any kind of mathematical exactitudes, as they would say, they're not necessary to provide. Attorney's fees may be awarded to prevailing plaintiff if the plaintiff is successful in proving that the ordinance was arbitrary and reasonable. And we originally, just to go to show how we're working on it, the bill used to include implied preemption challenges, and that's been removed. And a plaintiff can't recover for fees litigating over the amounts of attorney's fees. So there's a lot of things and nuances that we've been working with. They've been working with us to change. The cap is 50,000. So we're continuing to work together with the Florida League and other folks that are representing other communities to battle these changes that are coming across the board. I know one that's been of interest to municipalities is the regulation of smoking, and that is HB 105, that Senate Bill 224, and that's basically authorizing cities and counties to restrict smoking within the boundaries of any public beach or park that they own. It specifies things that the municipalities, they can't restrict smoking within the boundaries of a beach or park that is owned by the county but located within the city, so as long as it doesn't conflict with the county ordinances. So that's something that I know folks have been supporting over the years. So that's a little update on that bill as well. Now, we also have, which I know has always been of interest to folks here, is the vacation rentals. As you know, that's been going on for years and years and years. Fortunately, in most cases, we've been successful at trying to put a halt to a lot of these, but each year it gets more difficult as folks rise in power, and these are important bills to them. But Senate Bill 512, basically what that does is the bill permits grandfathered local laws as it would always say in the previous bills, and for those that were adopted on or before June 2011, and they could be amended to be less restrictive or to comply with the local registration requirements. Under the bill, local government may now require vacation rentals to be registered, but under the Senate version, they put a cap on the fee not to exceed 50 for an individual, 100 for a collective vacation rental registration. And a local government may also impose a fine for failure to register, but it also establishes limits on their on the local government registration program, including requiring a vacation rental owner to obtain any required tax registration, pay municipal or county code liens, or deny registration applications. You have 15 days to approve, or else it becomes that they're allowed to move forward with the rental. It also authorizes the division to revoke or suspend state rental licenses if they violate local registration requirements or violation of community association restrictions and such. So those are moving through the process. The House version allows the local governments to also create the registration program, but it prohibits from charging a fee for registration if such fee was not in place before the effective date of the bill. And it requires local governments to waive fines for failure to register if the vacation rental becomes registered within a certain amount of days thereafter. So there's slight differences, but I know you all were working on drafting some kind of legislation for vacation rentals. I think I heard when I came on, the legal attorney mentioned that the possibilities of waiting till the session's over so we can see which bill actually moves through the process and whether or not we can charge a fee or can't charge a fee, and then maybe establish that ordinance because before it is actually approved by the governor and enacted. So that is just a brief on the vacation rental. I know the other 518, which is the right to prune, trim, and remove the trees. The tree bill, what they always call it, has always been an interest to local communities. And basically, the summary is that it's a law prohibiting local government from requiring a notice application, approval, permit, fee, and mitigation for tree trimming or removal of a tree. But basically what this bill is doing, and as it's being amended, is it's really defining it a little clearer. There were some issues in the past saying that the language wasn't clear as to what was considered risk. So they define like what is documentation that has to be provided by an arborist or a licensed landscape architect by the owner. And they say that that is an on-site tree risk assessment performed in accordance with a tree risk assessment procedures outlined in the best management practices. Tree risk assessment, second edition, 2017. So they have a standard that they refer to so that it's clear. Also, residential property is considered single family detached building located on a lot actively used for single family purposes and which is either existing conforming use or legally recognized non-conforming use. The bill requires the property owner to possess the documentation that the tree possesses, and here's where the clarity comes in as well, is unacceptable risk. So they define it as a tree possesses an unacceptable risk if removal is the only means of practically mitigating its risk below moderate, as defined once again by the best management practices tree risk assessment 2017. So it gives some standards now to clarify, and it seems that no one seems to be having an issue with that any further. So with what they're doing with that particular.
David, thank you. And can you once again repeat, just so that it doesn't get lost in all the bills that you were talking about, where does the Biscayne Park appropriations request stand?
Oh yeah, that was I'm going to I was going to mention that. I always save the best for last. So they went through the initial budgetary processes. The House and Senate each come up with their own proposed, and we were placed into the House initial budget at $175,000, where most folks ended up as half of what they got because they usually use that to set the stage for conference. But the fact that we're in now is critical, and so that when we go to conference, then we're being discussed, and our goal is to increase that number as much as we can to get it as close to the 350 as we can.
Thank you.
Then finally, really, the other bills, if you have any interest, in them, we're working on them with the Florida League, and if there's anything else, I'll be happy to provide a detail on it. But also wanted to let you know that, I know we've been dealing with the issue of septic to sewer, and we had a good conversation with our Chevron Jones, senator, who, as you know, once the maps are created, the lines are going to change, and there might be new representation here for our area. But it seemed to, on the call that we had, he seemed very interested in trying to find resolutions to that. I know there's been a lot of grants out there that the manager has applied for, and some that he's getting currently for studies and what have you. But they are looking to see if we can, do something with the smaller communities that in many cases are unable to meet a lot of the grant requirements on a lot of these big grants that come out. So I'm going to be working with him. He's drafting a letter to try to come up with some kind of a program that addresses this issue as we move forward in the future, because I know it's something of great importance. But for the time being, we're doing what we can to address a lot of the local issues, which Mary had mentioned with the $350,000 request that we have currently. So things are moving along, they're moving well, and I'm always available to anybody, as you all know. I just wanted to share that information with you this evening. I was asked by Mayor and the manager to do that, and so I hope that I was diligent in the information I provided.
Thank you very much. I think that our new senator was very interested in trying to help us. So hopefully, I don't know if everybody knows, but they redrew the lines, so we have a different senator. Does any of the commissioners have any quick questions for Mr. Caserta?
Anybody else? You have something, Dan?
Yeah.
No. Okay, a couple of things. So first of all, Dave, thank you for that. That's a lot to unpack. I hate that expression, but I had to use it because it's so perfectly appropriate. So I got this package, and I didn't count that it was 40 pages, but it felt like 400 when I was going through it. But I did read it all. It's very interesting. It's nicely detailed.
Thank you.
I'd like to say maybe it's structured a little bit more so it's easier to understand. There's a lot of duplicate information through there. I found my eyes kind of spinning at a certain point. But I would like to understand sort of what is customary for a municipality, their level of engagement in this throughout the year, because I don't feel like we get these reports very often, and I don't know what's customary, what everyone else thinks is appropriate, how often we should be getting them, when, because I feel like I read this and it's like so much was well underway, and I see that you're saying you support, you oppose, what we haven't supported or opposed as a group here, and I understand that some of this is sort of like local governments all do the same thing, they're in lockstep on a lot of this. But what is customary, and when should we really be engaged with you, and how? What can we do and when to help you get more for this village?
So if you've seen in the past, anytime like some of the major issues are floating off shore, you'll get these bulletins out either from me or from the Florida League saying, urgent, please call your senator, please write a letter. That's when we engage on those issues. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, there are particular issues like the vacation rentals and things like that folks have a particular concern with at the local level, and they're like, Dave, keep on that one specifically. Here are some ideas that I have, and so if anybody has any solutions or ideas, I always take those to the legislator as well, and also take those to the Florida League, because that might help them as well as we're beginning to pick apart a lot of these bills. It's clearly virtually impossible to engage in everything. So we always try to, engage first on the bills that are moving. And then we look at the stuff that's not moving, and we assume that, if they're not moving at this point, then, we're looking pretty good at those being defeated. But you never know. Sometimes they pop out of the woodwork and they get onto another bill or a conforming bill or become part of another discussion. And once that happens, that's when we try to engage again. And if it's critical, we will send a note out saying, we need you all to make your contacts to your area legislators or the governor or whoever it might be.
Okay, so you're okay with us engaging with you directly, and obviously none of us individually can direct you to do anything, but it's just a matter of keeping us informed.
Yeah, and
So-
sometimes those who have interest in something, like for example, If you call me or the mayor calls me or someone says, hey, this is interest of me, I'll get the status of where it's at, what we've been doing. And if it's of grave importance, then you could always bring it to the commission and say, hey, as a team, we would like David to really, focus on this heavy, and let's give him some thoughts on where we stand and what we need to look at. And then that's the way I can engage more specifically on a particular issue that's of concern to you all.
Okay.
And Vice Mayor, to address the part of your question where, what can the village do to help bring more state funds to the village? The cities or the municipalities and the causes that get the most money is because they are in Tallahassee. They frequently go more than once a year during session to meet with the various committees when their bills are going up. So you'll have mayors and commissioners from cities going up at least 2 to 3 times a year during session to help lobby for their request. And then on top of that, they either go separately or they go, during the same time for Dade days, which is when basically all the municipalities in Miami-Dade County are up there lobbying. It's not a great time to try to lobby for your cause because each of the representatives are essentially splitting between 36 representatives and hundreds of people that are there for the various requests that they have in the state. So you're not getting a lot of time with any of the delegation. So, but a trip, if all 5 of you were going to go to Tallahassee, I would estimate that cost to be about $8,000 to $10,000. So it's not easy for Biscayne Park to be able to go there, which is why it's important that we have someone in Tallahassee to be able to be there when our item is going in front of the committee to be able to explain what we're requesting or why, if they have any questions for us, because we wouldn't be able to kind of make that out. It becomes very tight on that budget, but ideally, the more that you're there and the more you're able to connect with legislators, not only from Dade, but throughout the state at these various committees that your requests will be at, the more successful you will be.
You're saying that we should consider going there ourselves?
Typically, yes. If Biscayne Park wishes to be able to obtain more funds, it is common practice for the municipal commission to go to Tallahassee and meet with those representatives who is seeing the item in front of their committee, at least the committee chairs.
So Mario's correct. Traditionally, what will happen is during day days or during the Florida League, which is this week, folks can come up. And if you do, then I would, create an agenda for you to meet with the several legislators to talk about specific issues individually, because you can't meet together, obviously, there. But we would, go and visit with some of the folks, and then certain key commissioners or the mayor would focus on their key issues and have a dialogue. And that always is good because they put a person with the city. But he is right, the fact that at least we're represented up there. I'm in front of their faces all the time and addressing especially the appropriations issues as well.
Okay, are there any other commissioners?
I have one other specific question. Dave, there was one that you didn't discuss. It was House Bill 3. It's law enforcement benefits and training and some things. And it talks about bonus money, that if this passed, bonus money would be going out to new law enforcement officers. Where would that bonus money come from? It wasn't clear in what I.
Yeah, okay.
Is that something we would pay, or that would
yeah,
come from the state?
I'm trying to look at that. Okay, yeah, so that HB 3 is law enforcement officer benefits. Now, basically what that's doing is it seems to be setting up funds and grants through the Department of Economic Opportunity and other scholarships, maybe even through Department of Education, I think possibly I saw there, where those funds are legislated, have to be part of the budget. They get put in, and then the folks can go ahead and get $1,000 for education expenses for trainees enrolled in law enforcement training programs. It'll have funds where it provides law enforcement officers who adopt a child within the state child welfare system with a $25,000 benefit for doing that. So those kinds of things are placed in usually in the state's hands to provide I didn't see anything in there necessarily that had the local communities having to, give these post-secondary education training experience dollars or grants, So if I take a look at that again and see that anything like that has occurred, I will let you know. But most of it is something that has to be legislated in the budget and provides opportunities for these law enforcement officers to tap into those dollars if they meet certain requirements and criteria.
Okay, thank you. It didn't say where the money came from, and I just wanted to know if we were going to be asked to pay some of that.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
well,
you.
when, it doesn't say, but it does, in some of them, it does say that, certain monies have to be, have to come from, have to be placed in the Department of Economic Opportunity into this program and create this kind of a trust fund that will be used for the following purposes. So when you see that, then you know that it's the state's responsibility to create that, and the legislature has to, budget for that, each year. And some of it was just like a one-time bonus too, that they would put an allocation. If the state has a lot of money, they'll put an allocation and say, like, for example, they'll create what they call it the Florida Law Enforcement Recruitment Bonus Program, and it provides a one-time payment of $5,000 for newly employed officers in Florida. And they're doing this because, they're suggesting that they've had difficulty in attracting and retaining qualified law enforcement officers. So a lot of folks are unstaffed for several reasons, and they're trying to do what they can to incentivize that industry and bring people back.
Thank you. Commissioner Hammelberg, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Samaria?
Yes, I just comment. I wanted to thank you for your presentation. It's well put together.
Thank you.
Please continue to give us an update on items that are coming in front of the Senate and the House that affects Biscayne Park, and anything that we can do to help you come up. We had the cost of all the commissioners going up. I don't think we have that budget, $12,000. So I think that's what we hired you for, to do that. So I have to trust that you're going to be able to do that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Hammelberg?
Yeah, David, I do have family up in Tallahassee, and I do get up there periodically. Should I be contacting you before I make a trip to let you know I'm coming to the area?
Absolutely. There have been several legislators that have students at FSU and others, and they'll come up. And when you're here, you might as well take advantage of it. I'll take you around, and we'll set up meetings, and we'll do what we have to do. You will represent the community well. So
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you again.
Next
Thank
order
you,
of
everyone.
business. I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
Our next order of business is proclamation from Black History Month. In 1926, Dr. Carter Woodson, a Harvard scholar, established the observation of Negro History Week, now Black History Month, with the desire to reveal the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And we must acknowledge and pay tribute to the generations of our citizens who struggled with adversity, risked their lives for justice, fought at times impossible fight for equality and the American dream. And in 2022, we are marking 403 years since the first documented arrival of Africans in America, highlighting the resilience and contributions that African Americans have had on our country. From landmark cases on the anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education at Topeka, Kansas, to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Great strides have been made to end segregation in public places, equality, fair housing, and banning employment discrimination. And the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. The Village of Biscayne Park continues to work towards becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens, past, present, and future, are respected and recognized for their contributions and potential contributions to our community, the state, the country, and the world. The Village of Biscayne Park is proud to honor the history and contributions of African Americans, our community, throughout our state and nation. Be it resolved that I, Virginia O'Halpin, Mayor of the Village of Biscayne Park, joined by the entire commission, do hereby proclaim February 2022 as Black History Month. Thank you very much. I'd like to open the floor now to public comments. I think this time, since we usually call the ones that are here in person first, we will do the Zoom people first. Yeah, is the people who are on Zoom. So
Anybody-
if you want to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Ed, I think that hand on you is just a mistake, correct?
On me, it's Janie.
Oh, it's on. Okay, I see what it is. Okay, are there any hands raised?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you have Janie Anderson.
Thank you, Jeannie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. First thing I want to say, Mylan is going to be a pair of big, huge shoes to fill. I'm so sad to see her go, but she deserves her retirement. She's been such an asset to this community, not just to you guys and employees, but to those of us in the community. She is always the ultimate in grace and professionalism, and she's going to be missed. Okay, since we can speak to Swalen right away later, agenda item 14B, commission meeting reporting protocol. I think the idea of standardizing a monthly report and making it all inclusive is exactly what the residents of this community have a right to expect. I mean, obviously, it's all of our tax dollars funneling everything, and we shouldn't have to guess, and we shouldn't have to wonder. And what happens is the lack of communication and information just leads to conjecture and acrimony and assumptions. Giving us a concise report every month, something that then we can go back and continue to look up online, is just the right thing to do. And the expectation of accountability on the part of our staff isn't micromanaging, it's managing. And I do have one question for the manager. Were you able to find out what went on today with Great Waste, why there were several piles skipped over in the northeast quadrant? I couldn't see any of them that looked like they were been over 2 cubic yards. In fact, several of them were rather small. So I hope we're not kind of going back to old bad habits. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Anderson?
Bob, you're still muted.
You're muted.
How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, Mylan, I've known Mylan for many, many years, worked with her while she was here. I can tell you, I've never, ever seen nor heard that Mylan has had a bad day.
Bob, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just make sure that you don't have any computers? Maybe Janie's.
Yeah, let me close the door.
Because
I'm
we're
gonna close the door.
getting good, a lot of feedback.
Yep. Is that helping?
It does sound better. Thank you so much. And I apologize for the interruption.
That's okay. Like I was saying, Mylan has never had a bad day. She's always have been very pleasant person to work with and extremely knowledgeable. And I was wondering, are you guys going to be having a going away party? And if you are, is the public involved or invited? And if you could let us know, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other people on Zoom that wish to speak? I don't see anybody. Do you, Mario?
No, ma'am, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, I'd like to open up the floor then to our members here, our residents here. Barbara Kuehl.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. Actually, the reason Gary and I came tonight was to honor Mylan and to thank her for her service. And it's just same thing that everybody's repeating. It was always an absolute pleasure to work with her. She always had a smile. I don't think she ever did have a bad day, or she didn't let us know about it. And she will be missed. I'd also like to talk about the communication support services item. I've wanted two things. I wanted a newly designed Biscayne Park website. Our website is inadequate and outdated, and we need to look and act as if it's 2022, not 1970. Also, I wanted for the village to do a better job disseminating information for residents, keeping them informed about things that are going on here that impact their lives, like solid waste, code issues, projects that are going on, recreation activities, etc. The contract with media relations groups states in their proposal, and this is a quote, under website, while we have the capabilities and experience to provide a full website service to the village, we understand that at this time you are only seeking occasional content updates for the website. So we're going to spend, I think it was $20,000 on our outdated, useless website, and all we're going to get is someone to post information that'll be coming from the manager and employees. I don't understand why the manager, whose expertise is communications, can't do this. Commissioners, our budget is drawing down a little at a time. And what do you have to show for it? What have you done for this village to really see results? We get no information from the village. Our roads are a disgrace. There's no real support to improve the medians or the green space. And many of our buildings are neglected code violations. And you're worried about Nextdoor and Facebook? Stop rubber stamping these contracts. Start asking for real improvements for the village. Thank you. Oh, just one other thing. I do agree. I was looking at Mac's proposal that was co-written with the manager, whatever. I agree that we need a manager's report and information that's coming to the village. We have had some good managers, we've had some terrible managers, but they've all been able to produce a manager's report with updates on code and other things that are happening, so that if you are interested or you're trying to check something, you can go online and you can see it. And I think that's the least we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Gary Kuehl.
Gary Kuehl, 777 Northeast 111th Street. As long as I can remember, we had a weekly manager's report. And maybe we don't need a weekly manager's report, but it was comprehensive. It talked about public works, rec, police, code, and projects. It was comprehensive, a lot of detail. The level of communication now from the village manager consists of a single topic memo and a monthly police report. You know, there's more to the information that we used to get than just information. Some of it involves a yardstick, a measurement of how active are the police or code, or what is Public Works doing, and are they getting it done? As Barbara mentioned, our website is sadly outdated. It is actually a fountain of misinformation as well. For instance, it actually still refers to Waste Pro as our sanitation service. It tells you to come to the log cabin to get a permit, and there have been meetings held here when people actually show up looking to get a permit. The revised driveway ordinance was passed last month. What's the plan for letting people know? In the previous 2015 iteration, after 6 months, the attorney advised that they should no longer enforce it because residents were never notified. And that's what's going to happen again. Time and money has been devoted to a number of projects. Improvements to the exterior of the log cabin, parking at the rec center, the McMansion study. And months have gone by, and after these elaborate, needless PowerPoint presentations, boom, dead, nothing. I don't understand how a communications consultant is going to solve any of these problems. This is information that needs to come from the village. You know, they're talking about delivery systems, social media, graphics, video presentations. Well, if the information isn't there or it's wrong, what's the point? I mean, I believe we are still passing out a code compliance flyer that is incomplete and erroneous. At least it was there the last time I was in the village after bringing it up and even mentioning it at a commission meeting. You know, we'll have to come up with some hard punchline, but the bottom line is people really are confused, misinformed, disenchanted because they don't know what's going on. You can't expect people to be enthused and involved and engaged when they're just getting nothing, dead air. And it's exasperating. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Dan Keys is next.
Dan Keys, 118th Street. Read legislative
Talk
priorities.
into the microphone, Dan, so we can hear. Dan.
Reference legislative priorities. Now, you had some questions about finding more money next year. Now is the time to decide amongst yourselves what you want to ask for next year. I want to thank the village for finally addressing the landscaping on Northeast 6th Avenue and here along 6th Ave between 113th and 114th with maintenance. Finally, after a year's worth of pointing the issues out, the weeds are being pulled on Northeast 6th Avenue. A major renovation project on 6th Gear has been implemented. It's not done. There's still many oak tree seedlings in there that need to be addressed and so forth, but I'm glad they finally got to it. The village sign needs to be worked on as well. But primarily I'm going to tell my 5 representatives, it should not take a resident a year of pointing out these problems before it's addressed. These problems are not problems. They are things that should be established maintenance procedures in our village, and it shouldn't happen. Please don't let it happen anymore. Northeast 6th Avenue, we should have a contract, an annual contract to be able to replace palm trees when they get run over. It should be there, ready to be accessed. When 3 or 4 palm trees go out, you call the contractor, puts 3 or 4 palm trees in, bing, bam, boom, you address the budget annually for that. The ends of the islands on 6th Avenue were designed with flower beds. I want to see flowers in my community on 6th Avenue like it was designed and implemented. Will not cost a lot of money. Okay. Recommunications. I am also concerned that we aren't going to get our money's worth out of this contract because the substance of the message will still need to come from our staff. So if they don't have the time now to provide some substance to put in an email, I find it difficult to see how they're going to find that substance, that the time to provide that substance later. So, you know, if you do it, you really need to press and get some beef in your hamburger. Okay. And then also consider the fact that the contract in the 2nd and 3rd years that's possible in this contract, maybe more even, it's going to be a totally different contract than it was in the 1st year. It may not be worth $20,000, maybe worth $25,000. I don't know, but you know, consider that situation. You know, do we have a list of what we actually want to communicate, what types of things we want to communicate to people? Have you all been given something saying, here's what we want, here's what I want to get out of this communication person? You know.
Finish your thought, Dan.
Okay, I think I am actually. One last thing is, the water pressure on my street is horrendous, and it's been getting worse over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Maybe there's an annual thing that happens with North Miami, but I'd like somebody to ask a question, North Miami, what's the standard pressure supposed to be coming out of the faucet at somebody's house, or, you know, at some appropriate measure location, and see if we're, you know, getting what we pay for. Like to take a shower with some actual water coming out of the faucet. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'll close the public comments. The commissioners will respond. I would like to mention that Mylan did not want to retire. She was part of the DROP program, which is a retirement system that you go into, I don't know how many years ago. And it's required by Miami-Dade that she had to retire. So I just want you to know that she wasn't happy leaving. So as sad as we are, she was just as sad. Okay, Commissioner Samaria, do you have any comments? Okay, Commissioner Himmelberg, do you have any comments? Commissioner Gonzalez? Vice Mayor Kennedy?
Oh, you know I do. So a couple of really quick things. Barbara, to your comment about the website, you're correct that it's terrible, but separately, we've already contracted with a company to completely redo our website, and they're actively working on that. That's not part of what this communications vendor will work on, although there's certainly the opportunity for them to contribute some writing in the future. But Mario is already working on something, which takes me to the communications topic that several of you addressed. If Barbara Kuehl, one of the most informed people in this village, isn't aware of that, then we're not doing a great job of communicating things. And I know I can see it in your eyes. You were thinking the same thing. So thank you all for supporting the idea that we need to communicate. In a few minutes, we'll discuss exactly how that will get done. But certainly, I think we probably all agree on that.
Okay, our village manager will give his report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mario?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, there's several things I've wanted to bring to the commission, to the community's attention. First, later this week, the village clerk will be posting a notice of board vacancies. There are term limits that are coming up now in March. All the board members, I believe, in Parks and Parkway, their terms are up in March. They can be reappointed if they'd like. The Arts Board, I believe, has 4 of the 5 positions up as well as the alternate seat. And there's 1 vacancy in the Biscayne Park Foundation. So we'll be posting the application and that information on our website next door, and we'll do an e-blast as well. And we'll bring that back to the commission in March. Secondly, the assistant village manager at Ball Harbor has asked if our village would participate in a shoe drive. Every year, schools, community organization, and municipalities throughout the county have supported efforts to collect new or slightly used shoes for Camilla's house. The shoe drive is conducted throughout the month of March to coincide with the National Show the World Day, which is on March 15th. The purpose of the drive is to bring awareness that over 500 million children, teens, and adults worldwide don't have a pair of shoes to wear each day. So a group of local community members got together and they do a local drive for several years. Last year, communities that participated: Ball Harbor Village, Town of Surfside, Pinecrest, Bay Harbor Islands, Miami Lakes, Golden Beach, Sunny Isles, North Bay Village, Miami Shores, Miami Springs, and many private and charter schools throughout the county. They will provide the bins as well as any flyers or anything to put out there. So if I would like to participate, it's a worthwhile cause. We can have the bins located here at Village Hall and also at the rec center that we would collect. They put out the bins. They also come and do all the collection. So there is no additional work for any staff, and it's and there's no revenue or expenditure for the item. Third, I'd like to remind the commission that there is a cone of silence. We have multiple procurements out We have currently out our auditors RFP, as well as the disaster debris removal and disposal RFP. Later this week, I will also be emailing you putting into effect the cone of silence for the design build RFP for the roadway and storm drain project, which is being funded by the CITT funds, which the village has not used in many years. As you are aware, and I've communicated with each of you, as well as sent that out publicly to the community, the county began work on paving Griffin Boulevard from 121st all the way through the railroad tracks. I believe what's left as of this meeting is some striping on the south side of 113th Street, but they do have a lot of cleanup. Unfortunately, the county has not been very forthcoming with project details, timelines, dates, or even road closures. The village is finding out when the residents are finding out. We've reached out to the county commissioner, who was able to get us some information and a project fact sheet, but there was not much information to that. Luckily, all the construction is done except for some minor things. I don't anticipate any more road closures for the remaining work. Additionally, on January 5th, Chief Cabrera received a letter from the North Miami Chief of Police recognizing the efforts of Biscayne officers Sanchez and Lopez and their support to identify and detain a suspicious person back in December that was going around 121st Street, checking for vehicles, for unlocked doors, and then when finding, doing whatever they allegedly are done. So we want to recognize Officer Sanchez and Lopez for their assistance and thank North Miami for recognizing our officers. Lastly, I forward you all and posted on the website the 2021 year-end police statistics. Last week, this information is compiled with the FBI to try to streamline police statistics. Unfortunately, not every state defines things the same way. So an assault could be defined differently in a different state than we are. So the statistics aren't always apple to apple. And the new system that they started using last year is still not able to be fully functional. So we don't have a ranking for where Biscayne Park is as safest communities within Miami-Dade or the state of Florida. However, the report does say that in 2021, our police department had 48 arrests. The majority are being direct arrests or notice to appear as it relates to traffic violations. In other words, they pulled someone over, noticed that there was some type of either arrest warrant for failure to do something with a traffic violation or something like that, and that's where the arrests were made. The village did see a reduction in property crimes, burglary, larceny, and vehicle theft from 26 in 2020 to 15 in 2021. Unfortunately, there were 43 vehicle crashes throughout the village, and our commuter roads, which are mainly Griffin Boulevard and Northeast 6th Avenue, accounted for 70% of those accidents. Obviously, they're the most traveled, therefore more vehicles, and you're going to have those instances happen more than the rest of the roadways. In 2021, police also issued 1,800 traffic citations, and again, on 6th Avenue alone, 1,100 of those traffic citations came on 6th Avenue. It is the most traveled roadway in the village. So our police department has also served more than 25,000 watch orders throughout the village in the year of 2021. Again, as we've all said, and our police department continues to prove, this is one of the safest communities in Biscayne Park, obviously, but in Miami-Dade County, and I'm very proud of the work that they have done for the village. With regards to a couple of comments within the public comment phase, Vice Mayor Kennedy, you are correct. This contract does not call for website creation, as that is done through the company who is the domain servers for us. To give you all an update, for the most part, all the design is done. I have been delayed with trying to work on some of the content, and I'm hoping that this contract that if you all approve tonight will assist me in being able to do some rewrite and finally get that completed and live for everybody. We will definitely reach out to the city of North Miami with regards to the water pressure, Mr. Keys, and we'll ask them to see if there's some kind of test or anything that they can do. I know that there was talk last year about needing to probably update the various pipes that are running throughout Biscayne Park, but there is nothing that, in my communications with them in the past, that's not a project that's within their line of sight right now. But I will bring it back up to them to see if we can get an update. With regards to Great Waste, they did fall behind today. There was quite a bit of yard waste that they were picking up. We have spoken to them, and they will be making sure that that is picked up as needed, even if it means tomorrow as well. So we are still working with them on that. We will be issuing any type of notification so that they can remedy anything within 10 days as per the contract. If not, we will issue liquidated damages for that. With that, that is my report, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners.
I have a quick follow-up question, if I may, Mario, just for my own information. The water pipes in the village, is that the responsibility of North Miami, even though they're in our dirt?
Yes, sir. They're the utility provider.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to know if there's any board reports. Barbecue.
This is for Park and Parkways. One of our longtime members, Audra McCullum, had to resign last month, and I just wanted to thank her for her service. And she really was invaluable, providing her expert computer knowledge when we were doing the 2 grants. We're going to miss her. And just some things that our board discussed at the last meeting. First thing is 6th Avenue median. We agreed with Dan that it needed better weed control. And I wasn't aware that they had started doing anything. But we also wanted to recommend planting flowers at the end of the medians the way we did before. That's the way it was designed, and for some reason it stopped. We were also wondering about the next step to the workshop presentations on the log cabin, the specimen tree landscape code, and the recreation center parking project, because we haven't heard anything. The Australian tree pine stumps. Park and Parkways feels that Public Works doesn't really have the resources, time, or the heavy equipment to do this. We made a motion, and this was Biscayne Park should proceed with SFMs, removing the Australian tree pine stumps at the contracted price of $350 per stump. We feel North Miami should be contacted to remove the stumps on 121st Street, since we paid for removing the trees. Another item, some commissioners have suggested focusing on improving 1 median at a time. Last week, Park and Parkways evaluated 115th Street from 6th Avenue to 9th Avenue. We're creating a plan that includes removing undesirable shrubs and trees and making recommendations for improvements. It's a main entryway, and I think this would have a big impact, and we'll be bringing the plan back when we're done. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other
Questions?
board reports? Please raise your hand if, excuse me? You have a report?
Before we jump into hers, as a follow-up, Mario, can you respond to Barbara regarding the stumps? What's your opinion on that? I'm curious to hear where we stand. I see that they got some done, but it's slow-moving work. We knew it would be. But what's your opinion on that?
So we have reached out to North Miami with regards to 121, and we've gotten crickets back. So I've asked Albert to reach out once again. I've sent already a couple emails out to the city manager. So I've asked to see if he can do it within Public Works, and maybe there's a workaround there. I agree, and I've asked Albert to get quotes from SFM and the other vendors as well, with regards to the existing stumps, to see if we can speed that along. There is monies within that we can use for that, so I've asked them to get that quote. We do have that rate from SFM, but I have heard them not as happy that a lot of these trees, when they were doing the cutting, are much larger than what the limit is. To me, it's kind of like, oh, well, but
Or width of trunk or?
yes,
larger
the
than
width
what?
of trunk,
Okay.
correct. To me, it's kind of like, oh, well, but if they're not willing to do that work for that price, then I want to make sure that there's a backup plan. So I've asked them to get the quotes from all three. So as soon as we have that, we can make a determination where that goes and kind of move forward with it.
But remind me, we signed a contract with them and all the prices are outlined in that contract.
Correct.
So can't we just say, come take the stumps out at the price that's in the contract?
Absolutely. But if they say, no, thank you, because we can't do it for that price, they're not going to come.
They're not required to abide by the prices in the contract?
Yes, sir. But again, if they're going to dispute and say, hey, this is much bigger than what we thought and we can't do it for that price, then I can't force them to do the work.
What does the
So
contract say? How does I mean, I guess I could pull it up here, but how does that part of the contract read in terms of what we're paying for? And I thought it
so
was all
for
very
for
clearly
stump,
delineated.
yeah, sir, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. For stump, they have for anything of a certain size or bigger, they have a price, and I believe Mrs. Cool quoted it as $350. I don't have the contract in front of me per stump. So we've reached out to them and asked them for it. If they do not wish to do it at that price, then I have a bigger problem, but I am getting additional quotes from the other vendors, which the contract allows me to do, so that we can move forward and not just have it sitting around while we wait for a contract dispute.
Well, I'm not being argumentative, so don't take this the wrong way, but I'm confused. I just want clarification. So you're allowed to go get bids from somebody else, but if we have a contract with them and they have to abide by the contract, can't we say, come take the stumps out?
At their convenience, they can also terminate the contract.
They can what?
Terminate the contract. So
Essentially, we would have to do that to enforce the contract terms. So with entails cost in and of itself. So
then basically that contract is worthless, is what I'm hearing.
the contract is only as good as its ability to be enforced, which often will result in a lawsuit. The only way to enforce a contract is by law. Certainly, we can threaten it, hope it perform, but nevertheless, the remedy is for a breach of contract.
and again, not to say that they've denied the request, but I am making provisions to make sure that we can move forward with the work one way or the other.
Well, I hope we would remember this the next time we would even consider using them for something in their contract. If they're not going to abide by a contract that we signed with them, then throw the contract out and move on to the next vendor, would be my opinion. If someone's not going to stand by their contract that they presented to us, we didn't put a gun to their head and say, give us a contract. They responded to an RFP. They gave us a contract that outlines all the prices. Those were their prices and we agreed to it.
Agreed.
So then
May I make
it
a
sounds
few
like maybe you need to
comments?
move on to another vendor altogether.
Madam Mayor?
May I make a few comments? Okay,
Okay.
in
go
the
ahead, Commissioner
RFP, there
Samaria.
was a range of tree
Oh, no,
sizes.
he's going to be called on for a board. He's okay.
No, I wanted to comment on this item.
Okay,
Go
there was a
ahead.
range,
No, him.
okay.
All right, go ahead.
In the
Yeah.
RFP, there was a range of sizes for the trees. There was not a corresponding range for the tree stumps. The other two vendors gave a range of prices, say from $350 to $1,400. I don't remember the exact numbers. SFM did not. And it's my experience, despite what the attorney says, that a contractor doesn't have the right to pick and choose what he's going to do once he's signed a contract. He's committed to do it. And the contract should be void. if they're not going to live up to it. Simple as that. They should be penalized. I don't, and maybe we have to go to the other contractors, but I don't think we should continue with FMM because they're not a legitimate, it wasn't a legitimate and a valid bid. The other contractors recognized the problem and addressed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board reports? Okay, commissioner reports, Commissioner
Just,
Hammelberg?
and Mayor, just again, the bid form has for stump grinding, where a caliper trunk tree is between 2 to 8 inches, 10 to 20, and larger than 20. SFM bid for all those three. Okay, and so we're gonna ask them with regards to how many we have left, what that's gonna be at the 350. Should, and I am not saying that they have, should they say, hey, these are 40, 50, 60, we can't do it at 350, I'm sorry, we can't do it, then I will take the necessary steps to make sure that the work can be done. If it means terminating for convenience, then that's what it will mean. We are not there yet. I am not saying that we are there. I am just advising that I am taking all the necessary steps so that we can move forward one way or the other and not have to wait several months to work something out.
The bottom line, you're looking into getting the stumps taken out, so your folks don't have to.
Correct.
Awesome. That's great.
Okay, Commissioner Hammelberg?
Okay. I want to extend a congratulations from all of us to Dr. Chester Morris, who's been a longtime Biscayne Park resident and a prior commissioner. He was honored by Doctors Charter School for being a founding member of their organization and for 15 years of service to their organization. And I know many of us know Doc Morris, affectionately known here in the village as Doc. I did want to mention that I attended the Arts and Cultures Advisory Board meeting. I also attended the Code Enforcement Board meeting. The issue came up about the Zoom. I didn't think it was fair for us to mandate Zoom, but 50% of their board wanted to try it. So I think they are looking forward to trying it and see where it goes. Having our elderly special needs list worked out very well in this cold snap. We had one person in our community who's quite elderly who did contact me that her space heater was flipping the breakers every time she turned it on. And I did get her a heater for her home that was a brand new ceramic space heater. I know Great Waste did have issues with its claw arm truck. They do state that it's operator error. They've ripped out a few of our Comcast and other AT&T lines, and I believe everything was back within a few days, but they have addressed that issue and assured me it won't happen again. And that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Smery, do you have a report?
No, ma'am.
Did he say no? Oh, okay. Commissioner Gonzalez?
I just wanted to congratulate also the police, our police department, for the 2021 report. It's very reassuring living in this community, knowing that we have the officers that we have. So I'm very proud of that. I just wanted to congratulate all the officers.
Okay, Vice Mayor Kennedy?
Yeah, one thing real quickly, just to tag on to something Judy brought up, and that Mario, the Great Waste with their claw, they've ripped up some people's yards recently, and I know you've been on top of that. And I got a really nice email from a resident today who was very happy to report that they came and resodded a chunk of her front yard that they had ripped out, and she's very happy. So thank you for contacting them and enforcing that part of their contract.
Okay. We'll go to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to,
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
seconded by Judy Himmelberg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next one will be
Ten-
ordinance 2022-3.
No, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. We're on item 10B, ordinance number 2022-02. You all had decided to wait until you heard David Caserta's report, and then at the item, decide whether you wanted to table this for a later date or take it up today.
Right.
May I say something, Madam Mayor, about this item?
Go ahead, Commissioner Gonzalez.
From what I heard from David Caserta, and from what I've heard is basically that this thing has been going around for a long time, and it can continue to go on for a long time. And whether we change it 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years, whatever it is, depending on what they do, I don't think we should stop moving forward, just waiting for them to make a decision that may or may not come at any given time. So I think we move this item forward. What's that? Go ahead.
You want to take a vote on the first reading? That's what I had brought up before.
Yeah, I think we should, because this can take forever, and we may have to change it anyway.
I have no problem with it. I
So-
thought that the
Madam Mayor,
majority said no.
I think moving it to March is, according to the attorney, is not going to make that much of a.
Nothing will have been determined by March to help us to make a difference. It's either do it now or wait until July at minimum.
Okay. Ed, would you do ordinance number 2022-02?
Yes, ma'am. An ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, adopting a new chapter 19 of the Biscayne Park Land Development Code entitled Vacation Rental License Program, providing for the licensing and regulation of short-term vacation rentals, providing for definitions, providing for licensing requirements, providing for standards, providing for the administration of the program, providing for enforcement, providing for penalties, providing for an appellate process, providing for vesting of existing rental agreements, providing for inclusion in the code and scrivener's errors, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Is there a,
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-02, ordinance for the Village of Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park. Florida
is there a
adopt.
s-
I'm making,
I'm sorry.
so I'm making a motion to approve. it.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Second
if I
by
may.
Vice Mayor Kennedy. Is there any discussion on it, or does,
Public.
can we call?
Public comments first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comments on that? Dan Keys?
Still Dan Key. I'm gonna
Talking to that microphone,
I'm
please.
going to rattle off a bunch of comments, questions. If a property is leased annually and then subleased as a vacation rental, does our ordinance sufficiently cover this? The drawings that are required should show emergency ingress and egress. Require fire extinguishers in each unit. Can the landline that's required be an internet phone? Do required windows need to be such that they serve as a means of emergency egress? We say this needs to have a window, but is the purpose for that to provide for egress? Are separate kitchens allowed? Do the permitted kitchen elements of our code related to single family and duplex properties apply, or can each bedroom in a house have a separate kitchen and be leased out as a vacation rental unit within a single family or duplex property? I think that's an important one. Can a single family house be modified in such a way to provide separate egress to the outside for each bedroom? Is there a limit to the number of single room occupancy units within a home? Can they be limited? I'm worried here about creating a rooming house type situation. Can ingress and egress from a rented bedroom in a home or duplex be required to be limited to the main house access points? In other words, you have a single family house, you're renting out a single room. Can we require that the egress from that room be through the front door of the house so that the houses aren't modified with exterior doors to every bedroom in the house? Can there be a code violation for noise, for instance, on one of these units? that also constitutes a violation of this ordinance. And I'm getting at here is kind of double jeopardy situation. You know, if we issue a noise violation, is that also going to be double up as a violation of the this ordinance that we're talking about? Does a vested property that's discussed in the ordinance need to renew and pay a fee? Do they need to renew every year, even though they're allowed a grandfathering in for the first situation? Do they need an annual renewal? Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Madam Mayor, you have Janie Anderson with her hand up for comment.
I'm sorry.
Janie Anderson would like to comment.
Okay, Janie, go ahead. You're muted.
Do you want to do the folks that are in the audience first, Mayor?
I apologize, I did not see.
No problem. Just to clarify, I'm not here for public comment, but I'm here on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Board. If there were any questions about the comments that were sent up. So I'm just here in the audience if needed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Janie Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. First of all, thank you guys for bringing this forward. Normally, I'm not a fan of enacting legislation only to know you're probably going to have to redo it. But I think in David Caserta's report, it's very clear the state is going to attack this issue year after year after year. We might as well get a move on. We're already like 11 years behind. I thank Dan Keyes for some very, very good questions. I hope we get answers to that. I really appreciate P&Z's comments, and I basically agree with them, with the exception. They made a comment as to feeling $1,000 initial fine was too high. No, it's not. This is a business, as we've talked about before. It's equivalent to any hotel, motel, guest house, and some of these are already operating out of our very large McMansions. The financial gain for these establishments can be substantial, and the only way they're going to understand that a little community like us is to be taken seriously and our rules are to be followed is if it hits them financially. Anything less than $1,000 out of the box, and it tempts people to just push it to the limit. We're little, we're not always taken seriously. So it becomes really crucial that these ordinances be tight and that they hit home very early on. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I don't see any, Mario, do you?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay, is
If
there
I
any
may.
Any other comments from the commission before we do a roll call vote?
Madam Mayor, if I may, before the commission comments. Thank you. So first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you to both Valerie and Ed. After our discussion, they put things together very quickly so that we can move this forward and put it onto the next available agenda of planning. So thank you very much for all the hard work and the turnaround very quickly. As we've mentioned in the past and now even here today, for the past several years, there's always been legislation that would preempt local government from acting any rules against short-term vacation rentals. And right now, they've been successful in doing that to a certain point. We cannot create additional rules like requiring additional parking more than a normal single-family home, or saying you need to have, and to answer to some of the residents' question, you need to have this additional style window. They won't allow those type of things if it's not required for their surrounding homes as well. This year is definitely not in it. The state would love to basically preempt everything and they be the ones that issue the license and handle any issues and things like that, which doesn't make any sense, because if we have an issue at 11 o'clock at night, the state's not going to come down and do it. So it's going to be us. So that is what the Florida League of City has been fighting for many years. We continue to move forward with that type of mantra to keep this at a local level, because it's a local issue. I also do, and I do appreciate that you are taking this up, because my recommendation is we move forward. And, if we want to wait for second reading until after this legislative session, we definitely can. And if not, we can keep moving back. But I did find, and I put it in the memo, and I wanted to say it out here. I did a recent search prior to the agenda going out as to what are the properties renting for in Biscayne Park. And this was only for a weekend. And it was just at that one time, and it was only one website. I didn't look at, there's several websites, but it ranged from $95 a night for one room to over $820 a night for a home. Okay, I think it was a 3-bedroom home. So I think the fines are appropriate. Legal double checked everything with the state to see what we are allowed to and what is the upping limits for the fines. And they felt that what was being proposed fell within those limits. So I think we are really in a good spot when we're putting this together. And you're coming from a place that can make a difference. To answer some of the questions, because I know that some of the commissioners will also have, the intent is for this license to be given to any property that will rent a short-term vacation rental less than 30 days, if I'm correct, right? That's what the state statute requires it. So if they're renting these properties for less than 30 days, they would be required to do the license. If it is subletted in the code, they need to have a notarized letter from the property owner saying, I am aware and I allow it. Okay. So it's not just to sublet and then I can do it without the owner finding out, because some owners don't want that. So we have that kind of provision put in there, and they would have to renew every single year. I don't believe we've recommended what the price for the license fee will be. I believe we've kind of left that for discussion for you all to consider what would be appropriate. The bill does say $50 is what they're hoping to cap it at. I can tell you that in North Bay Village, I believe it's $800, right? So it really depends what's allowed right now and what could be and where you all feel comfortable, and then what will end up happening at the end of legislation. If anybody wants to make a modification to a single family home, they have to go through planning and zoning to make those modifications. This simply structures that they are required to have a license in place. They are required to have certain information in place so that the property owner or the rentee knows what's allowed for noise. They know what's allowed for the garbage pickup. They know what parking is allowed, what is not allowed, things like that. That the village has a representative that we can call 24/7 in case there is an issue or an emergency. With regards to, do we really need a landline or can it be an internet phone? I would recommend we keep language that talks about a landline. Internet goes out very frequently here at Biscayne Park, mainly because these lines are all on the utilities. And a landline so far has been more reliable than what Comcast or AT&T from an internet basis has been able to provide. If we go through a hurricane and there's somebody staying in one of these properties, cell phones are going to be completely gone. Internet might be completely gone because of power, but landlines should be able to still function. So I think it's safer to have a landline. We all know that everybody carries a cell phone regardless, but I think it's a safer approach or a more cautious approach to have that landline. I don't know if we're requiring fire extinguishers in the bill, but I think that's a great idea. In addition, it's just not coming to mind right now. And right. There is a lot in there, so I apologize. I don't have it completely memorized, but I think it's a great start. I think it's a well written, and I think it sets you up to have a very meaningful conversation on how to move this forward and what's going to be best to try to protect, as best as what the state allows us, the quality of life for the community.
Real quickly, you brought up something interesting that I hadn't thought of. You looked at the average cost for a single night. Do you have any indication of what the average stay is here in Biscayne Park? Okay.
No, and this was just going onto a website
I
and
understand.
typing in.
You just
Biscayne
looked real quickly one
Yeah.
place, just kind of curious about that. Okay.
And just before anybody else, I just have a short thing. I'm concerned and oh, sorry, hopefully somebody can clarify for me, because I think Commissioner Gonzalez had the same thought as I had. I don't want residents that decide, I want to be sure they're covered under this sorry, that they're, not covered underneath this, or they are covered. If a resident wants to rent out their room, for a
So-
period of time, is this going to affect them? Because I don't want to
Yes.
affect residents.
Yes, I understand. And initially that was the intent, that I was hoping to draw a line in between. But as the attorneys pointed out, state statute dictates what that looks like. So anybody who rents out, whether it's a room or the whole house, for less than 30 days, this would apply to. And that's state statute. That's not something that we can change.
And I do believe on that it states more than 3 times a year.
Correct.
So if you decide on Super Bowl weekend that you're going to rent to your cousins who are coming in town, I don't think that applies, because it's just once.
Correct. Attorneys, did you want to clarify on? Okay, said it correct. So, yeah, so we initially tried, but there's limitations to what the state allows, as with everything else within the code.
Jenny? You're up.
Did you all want to discuss some of the notes? Because I know that P and Z did provide various comments, and we do have a representative here as to some improvements. Did the commission wish to discuss those?
Why don't we, since Edward's here, why don't we run through their list really quickly in case we need to talk to him about anything, and then if he doesn't want to stick around, he can go. We'll move on. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that works.
Sure.
Should we vote on, take a roll call first?
No,
No,
we're not voting on
talking
anything.
about the planning comments.
Okay.
So I think you have the summary of the notes, but there's a section that says that a diagram or drawing of the house is required as part of the application, and it says that sort of parenthetically that a hand sketch is okay. We get a lot of hand-drawn sketches as part of different applications. Some are better, some are worse, depending on what the purpose is for a permit. We try to work with the resident. But since this is a revenue-based sort of premise, we think it's appropriate that the applicant either uses the software him or herself, or hires a draftsperson to create an actual to scale drawing, because I think this is important. What you're trying to get with that drawing is for egress and safety, and a hand sketch is based on what we see as on the board with other applications is not going to cut it. So we'd recommend that you don't allow hand sketches.
Can we take these one at a time so we can discuss
Sure.
them with you? So Edward, if I tore down my house and Dan and I were to build a new house and I drew up a hand sketch of a house, would you guys let me come to P and Z with a hand sketch?
No, something that extensive would require proper construction
Okay.
documents.
Would you let me renovate our house with a hand sketch through P and Z?
We would not. no.
You would not. Is that allowed, Valerie, or is that an additional burden that we can place on these people that we cannot place on, that we don't place, that we wouldn't necessarily place on a resident?
I think that's okay.
Yeah, because I think it makes perfect sense. I just want to make sure it's not one of those things that we're not allowed to place any additional burden on these people that we wouldn't place on anybody else, is the whole point to some of Dan's things.
Understood.
Okay. I'm in total agreement with
I
that.
agree. I think that's.
I agree.
Okay, so the next comment was just clarifying, there's I guess a whole section under that 1.5. We have in the existing zoning code that accessory structures cannot be habitable spaces, right? We don't allow in-law quarters and so forth. So we just wanted to be clear that in terms of what spaces are being rented, that the same restrictions on how you can use your home based on the zoning code would apply to this, that therefore you wouldn't consider an accessory structure or a trailer as a habitable space for the purposes of renting. So it's basically just aligning with how the zoning works for habitable space for residents.
I think that makes perfect. Judy, did you want to say something?
I think we all agree with that.
Okay, since we're on that topic, let me just sort of pile on there for
Hold
a
on.
second if I may.
Wait. We don't have to repeat every provision in the code in this ordinance, okay? There's already a provision says it's not a habitable space. So it's not a habitable space. You don't have to keep putting it in here in order to make it not a habitable space. Grandfather provision doesn't have anything to do with accessory buildings. It has to do with rental agreements. That's all.
Yeah, I would just clarify that the definition of habitable means one thing in the Florida Building Code, which is kind of what you have here under definitions, and it means another thing in our local zoning code, because in other ordinances or other municipalities, you can have an accessory structure that's considered habitable. It's just that we prohibit it because we don't allow in-law quarters. So just that's the distinction we're making between the definition you have in here, which is really a Florida Building Code definition, versus the local zoning.
And one of the things to help protect that, Commission, is that when someone applies for the license, they would be required to have an inspection of the property. So this is one of those things that they can say, nope, this is an accessory structure, you can't do that.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna skip 1.6 because I'm not quite sure what the and permit issue was there. That might have been something that Gage included. Under 1.10, we just want to include that the representative is responsible for the obligation of trash removal and placement on the appropriate days. Not that that's just something that's left as a rental occupant's responsibility, but it's that owner's representative that's on the hook, that's on the 24-hour phone call list, that's part of their responsibilities. Because I think that's
And-
one of the big concerns and big problems with the short-term rentals is that they don't know what waste days are. They don't worry about taking the trash out or
Right.
bringing the trash bin
Bringing it
back
back
in,
in.
and that's a eyesore.
Is that something we can require a person to do, or is it just something that's a citable offense if it doesn't happen and the citation goes to the property?
You are correct, Vice Mayor.
So we can't do that.
Any violation goes to the property.
Property.
But are you saying that it can't be listed as a duty of the owner's representative?
No, because we couldn't list that as a duty of you at your house.
Gotcha.
If your trash
Just
cans are
say-
left out,
just-
your property's being cited.
Yeah,
Understood.
unfortunately, we can't enforce that against the representative. You know, he's only there for notification purposes.
Mhm.
It's the owners who's responsible for the overall compliance with this provision.
Okay, understood. So there's a whole section at 1.11 where you're kind of laying out minimum standards for square footage, number of occupants per square footage, the size of glazing openings, et cetera. So we just recommended that be, and it may have already been, we're not saying that it has not been, cross-referenced with the FBC requirements for the same things, right? So that we're not in conflict with those.
Yeah, I don't believe we are. I did look this up, but speaking with Gage afterwards, because I asked him to give me a call and we can go over some of these comments. I did a little bit more digging, and I like to propose something when it comes to the maximum occupancy. It can get a bit confusing, and I heard the commission at the last discussion, and I hear it again with planning and zoning. I looked at Miami-Dade's verbiage for a maximum occupancy, and I like to read it because I think we should maybe just use this language as it is. It states maximum overnight occupancy for vacation rentals shall be up to a maximum of 2 persons per bedroom plus 2 additional persons per property, up to a maximum of 12 persons, excluding children under 3 years of age, which was a big concern when I was talking to Valerie of you rented one room, it's you, your wife, and then you have a newborn or something, yet there's only 2 people. So we were trying to figure out ways, and we were using the basis of North Bay Village. So it excludes 3-year-olds of age. At all other times, maximum occupancy for vacation rentals shall not exceed the maximum overnight occupancy of the vacation rental plus 4 additional persons per property, up to a maximum of 16 people, excluding children under 3 years of age. For purposes of this subsection, overnight shall mean from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. the following day. Notwithstanding the foregoing, at no time may the occupancy of the vacation rental exceed the maximum occupant load of the property under the Florida Building Code. So in other words, if you rent a vacation rental down here and you have family in the neighborhood and they come visit you, you're able to have essentially up to 16 people total within the property, right? So you could have a family dinner, things like that. However, for overnight, you're limited to 2 persons per bedroom plus 2 additional persons per the property, up to a max of 12. So I think that's a lot clearer as opposed to the way that it is currently within the ordinance. So I would offer just copying the county verbiage for that as opposed to how it is now.
So the word you're using, I was trying to follow along. So the word you used is bedroom. We don't use bedroom in this, do we? We use habitable room. Isn't that correct, Valerie? We use habitable room, and habitable room is basically any room in the house other than the ones we list that we say are not habitable rooms. And that's something else I want to discuss. So I don't know that, am I correct on that, Valerie?
But actually now looking at, I'm sorry, let me get closer to the mic. Now looking at the language for the maximum occupancy, that's in 1.11 C5, it does
Mhm.
use the word bedroom.
But we use habitable room in the definitions. Yeah, so those two things don't align with each other. So we have to, that's something we need to sync up. But regardless then, Mario, so you're saying, if I understood, 2 per bedroom, under 3, just forget about anyone under 3.
Right.
They're kind of presumed to be in the room with their parents probably. Okay, so 2 per bedroom plus 2 extras, max of 12. Where did the max of 16 come in? Is that if someone's coming to visit you and you live in your house?
That's my interpretation of what the county code is. So you can have on the property at any given time before 10 p.m. up to 16 people on the property.
That would preclude you from having a party?
Not preclude you from having a party, but you're not going to have a blowout party, right? Where you're going to have a massive amount of people. You're not going to have 30, 40, 50 people there. So it's giving you the leeway to be able to have guests over prior to 10 p.m. because here it says overnight, you can only between
It maxes at
10 and
12.
7, it maxes at 12,
So you're saying you can't have more than 16 people at your house for a function?
basically.
That's not reasonable in that rule.
Only if it's a vacation rental, not
Not,
if.
not a resident.
But on vacation, I could live in my home and it's a vacation rental. And I could have 6 people in my household and have people as a vacation rental, family members coming to rent it from me, because people do rent to people they know as well. And you couldn't have, including your own family, you couldn't have more than 16 people until 10 o'clock at night. That sounds a bit onerous to me.
I thought we had said that we can apply different rules to vacation rentals that we do to residential, to current residents. So how does this work? Because, I mean, we're just saying we can't treat them different, but now we're treating them different. We're telling them how many people they can have in their home, as opposed to a resident that we can't tell how many people to have in their home, really.
I was with you until you got to the 16 part. That's where I got lost because your family's in there with you.
Yeah, so I don't know how that works.
And Mario, that was short-term rental language you were reading, not just general occupancy language. That's
No, short term. This is vacation. This is the Miami-Dade County code for short-term vacation rentals. And it's
So-
section 33-28.
So we would be required to meet that code or make it more strict. We couldn't make it more lenient
Well,
anyway.
mm,
County code, I thought we had to either match it or
I think for the short-term rental ordinance in the county, it's for unincorporated Miami-Dade. So it doesn't
Oh.
apply to the village.
gotcha. Okay,
It's actual
got it.
organization.
Okay.
And by statute, the preemption is limited to you cannot prohibit or regulate the duration or frequency of short-term rentals. So you're allowed to enact unreasonable regulation. Prohibit them, you can't say no more than 5 times a year, you can't say you're limited to one, or whatever. So those are kind of the parameters. It's not that they say that it's not susceptible to challenge.
Right.
We are dealing with property rights, but, now we have this bill coming up that would even limit our ability to regulate some of the things that we're trying to do here. So those are just the things to be cognizant of.
Mhm.
But certainly we can, based on Mario's proposal, try to adopt something similar to the council in terms of maximum occupancy.
I'd just like to
can
clarify that
support
you
that.
guys are focusing on number 5 under Part T, under 1.11, and our comment was more towards, directed at item 1, 2, and 2I, because this is the part where that language is very similar to language that's in the Florida Building Code, where you talk about you shall have a minimum gross floor area of not less than 150 square feet for the first
Right.
occupant and not less than 100 square feet for each additional occupant. That every room in a vacation rental occupied for sleeping purposes shall have a gross floor area of not less than
Mhm.
70 square feet, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the
Ceiling
ones that we
height, that whole
recommended
big
that
section.
we make sure is in alignment with FBC and doesn't contribute. It
Absolutely.
may already be, but that was our point.
I thought we discussed that last meeting, didn't we, Valerie? We had the conversation that it met those building requirements.
We talked about it with reference to requiring windows, if you recall. And
I thought it was height of rooms and stuff we talked about as well.
specifically as to minimum gross floor area, that's something that we can talk with our building official for the village. to see
Absolutely.
We should probably make sure that aligns.
Correct. And to your point about the window, so we also noted as another of the public comments that it should really read operable window. That's the intent of a window. So.
Well, we talked about
and
that
again,
last
that's a-
meeting and I
that's a Florida
thought,
Building code requirement in a habitable
we-
space. needs
right,
an
it's a
operable
means of
occupant.
egress and we brought it up last meeting and I thought we were told no. And I said, but it doesn't say operable. Right, but I understand. But last meeting, I thought we did have that discussion and you told us no, because I remember saying, I thought you had to have a means of egress through a window or it made it a closet, not a bedroom.
We added it since last meeting.
But it doesn't say,
That's why it has it now.
right, but it doesn't say operable.
It doesn't.
Right.
That's what we'll add to it.
Okay, I thought you said we couldn't make it an operable, we couldn't require it to be an operable window. Okay. Okay, good.
And then our last comment was with respect to the fines. And I just want to say, as the other public comment, concerned that these should be very aggressive fines. We don't disagree. We were very much in favor of a very steep ramping up of the fees after the first offense. We just felt that there could be instances of unintended first offenses. And while there are some, large sort of investment properties that may be used as vacation rentals or short-term rentals, Airbnb, there are also residents who are, maybe on a fixed income or retired and maybe renting out one bedroom to make a little extra income on the side. And we were thinking of them when there might be some unintended first offense, that there should be a more reasonable fine. That was our opinion. Obviously, once they've made that first offense and they make it again, then they're not learning their lesson or they don't care, and at which point the fine should be appropriate. But we were thinking not of the large investment property owners' concerns, but of the average resident with a spare bedroom. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is one of my concerns. Couldn't we add something in there that would cover the residents? That doesn't have.
Can't make exceptions. We can do it one way or the other.
Hey, Shante, do you want to call the roll?
Oh, no. I have a list of things I need to talk about. You didn't let Commissioner, well, sorry, Jenny, you gotta let commissioners have our discussion. We let residents do it and the board chair, and now it's our turn. But I don't have to go first. I'm just making sure we do it. So somebody else want to go first?
This portion, section 1.16 penalties and enforcement. It's a little confusing to me, to be quite honest, the way I read it. And, maybe I'm just overreading it or underreading it. I'm not sure. Yeah, well, it seems confusing to me. So if we read halfway through the first A, where it says such violation shall be subject to a fine in the amount of $1,000 for the first offense. Okay, that's clear. $2,000 for the second and subsequent offenses, right? Plus a suspension, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then a fine of $5,000 shall be imposed for the third fine and any subsequent. So is it 2,000? Oh, okay. Did I missed something here? If the code enforcement board finds the violation to be irreparable or irreversible in nature, each day a violation exists shall contribute a separate and distinct violation. Okay, but still confusing. Okay, so $2,000 for the second offense and any subsequent offenses. Okay.
Now, if it's irreparable harm, it ramps up
To $5,000.
Can you define legally irreparable harm?
See, the reason why it's phrased that way is because under chapter 162 of Florida statute, for a municipality, the absolute maximum fine allowable is $5,000. Irreparable and irreversible harm. Without that finding, you can't go up to $5,000.
But what is the definition of the irreparable?
Yeah, it's dependent, and that's something that is defined based on the evidence. Correct.
Our administrative citations, they're allowed to be fined without warning because if they're not correctable, because there's such an abuse.
So, another question about it's the same issue here. So there are no timelines here, right? So if I get $1,000 fine this year and I don't do anything bad or I don't get caught doing anything bad for 2 years, is my next fine going to be 2,000 or does it go back to 1,000? Is it every time I get a new license? Does it revert back to zero? Like, how does that work?
It does not have a prescribed amount of time.
So if I get a fine today for $1,000 and nothing happens for 5 years, my next fine is going to be $2,000? Okay, I don't. What's that?
Because all of this is attached to the person who got the license.
I kind of like the idea of, I don't know if it's possible because everything is complicated here, but I like the idea of wiping the slate clean every time they get a new permit. It's a yearly thing. Every September they get a new permit, right?
Look at the next section because that is written into the next section about suspension of licenses. You're reading the part about fines. There's another section where suspension of license is addressed what you're asking for, Art. It's addressed that way.
Yeah, but this is not about suspension. This is
I'm
about
saying that
fines.
language is in here. So what you're asking for it already exists. We could kind of maybe blend them together or something. I don't know, but I'm saying that principle is included in here for something else.
Okay, but for the suspension, not
Yeah,
for fines per
yeah,
se, right? Yeah.
What you're asking for, it is in here. We could maybe.
It's like your driver's license, right? Your driver's license, you get points and every so often, boop, they clean them up and yeah, they do. Is it every 3 years?
I don't know.
So I don't like the idea of having to carry over. If you get $1,000 fine and you learned your lesson and all of a sudden, a year later, somebody does something stupid, you're going to get hit or 2 years later, whatever. Yeah, I just like the idea of starting fresh.
Could we include, Valerie, the same way that, 'cause I see what Art's saying and I don't disagree with him. The same way that section C, suspension of license is tied into, could we tie that into that same kind of thing? Or could we say a 24-month period or whatever we thought was kind of reasonable? 'Cause I even think, well, I don't know, what do you guys think? Is a year? I mean, another one within a year or within 2 years?
I like at every renewal to look at what's happened in that year, right? And then determine, if they haven't gotten, if nothing happened within a year, I think the slate should be cleaned and start all over again.
Well, it could state that renewal of license, couldn't it, Valerie? Valerie, could it say on a renewal of license that everything is,
You don't know when.
Because people could get a license in July and they only have, then they have to renew it the next month. Right. Okay.
okay. Any other discussion on this? Mac?
I'll defer to the other folks. Judy, you have anything before I go?
No, I agree with Art. We need to have a 1 or a 2 year period at the most that we hold them responsible and then give them a clean bill. And so 10 years later, we can't go after them for 5,000 for a third offense if it hasn't been an issue.
I also believe that on this document, it says that the licenses expired on September 30th, right? And you have to renew every September 30th. But the following document, we'll look at it then. It says it's good through January through December 31st. The following, what's coming up next as far as, that's not the landlord?
That's the landlord permit. Yeah,
That's
it's a different, correct.
Okay, Commissioner Kennedy.
Oh, yep, okay. So a question for Valerie. I read the name of this item. It's always fun now that I've learned how you have to put these things together. Does that name really effectively cover everything in there? Because I wouldn't want that to bite us in the butt later on. I looked there and it seemed to me from what I saw in there, but I'm just asking to ask. Here are my big questions. I see nothing in here regarding pool safety. These are basically, these homes are motels with people staying in them and many of them have pools. So we have things written in here about they have to have a sign up about when the trash goes in and out and where you can park your cars, but we have a serious life safety thing that's not being addressed. So might we want to include something in here about pool safety, that something has to be posted maybe outside by the pool, like at a hotel or a motel, and or inside the home that addresses pool safety, that talks about the fact that the gates have to be kept closed, that the alarms cannot be disabled because some homes, one of the requirements can be that there's an alarm on all the means of egress open to the pool enclosure. And I know you can disable them. I've done it in rental homes, and then not hook them back up. So I hope somebody did. So can we do that? And should we do that? Seems to me life safety stuff should be of our utmost concern. So how would we do that if we wanted to? No horseplay, no running. Doesn't have to be all that, but specifically the gate's got to be kept closed. You can't disarm the alarm, the pool safety alarm. You can't take the kitty enclosure thing down if it's up or whatever. I don't know what they would be, but should we? I think we should at least consider it. And how would we?
And how would we enforce it? That's the issue, right? You can't enforce those requirements.
If the gate's hanging wide open, the neighbor says the gate's hanging wide open, that is easily enforceable. Exactly. But just to tell these people that are staying there, because a lot of them don't know that there are such rules and.
I think the gates have to close. by
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, but you can block them
I
open.
think they have to comply with the rules.
Not the rental, that's the responsibility of the
The
owner
owner.
property. So it's
Mhm.
already in our code that stays on it.
Well, so is taking out the trash cans and bringing them back, but it's just kind of interesting that we would require a sign to be posted about when the trash goes out and then when the cans have to come back in, but not keep that self-closing gate closed. Don't block it open when you have a party so kids can wander in and drown.
If it's just a sign, then
Yeah.
that can just be something that during the inspection, you look for the sign. But I thought we had
So then how are we enforcing these other things, Valerie, where they have to put a sign up about, they have to post parking rules and trash can rules? How are we enforcing that?
Honor system.
Okay, but how are we enforcing the trash can
Sorry,
sign and the parking sign? Well, then just do it that same way for swimming. Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
But code officers can't see the back door of a house. Right.
Right, which is where they normally have it.
However, we're doing trash cans and parking rules for the village. It seems to me we should have rules about if there's a pool in the house, you can't block that self-closing gate and you can't disable alarms.
Problem with that is that for pools that were done before 2000, they don't have those requirements. So how are we going to know?
They're,
when-
they're
when
not
those-
required to have a self-closing gate.
No, they're not. They're grandfathered in. We're not going to, we're not.
And
gonna
a self-closing gate itself isn't required either. They can meet one of the other standards.
Well, then just line up with those standards, whatever they are.
Now, question, we ran this by P and Z. Do we run this by code since they're going to be enforcing some of this? Should we run it by them?
Not required to, Commissioner. It's just, the planning board was required on this one because it's part of the land development code.
Oh, because we're,
But
I see.
can we? I mean, if they're going to be enforcing it, don't we want their input?
Well, they already enforce all of this stuff, Judy. This is not, this is nothing new. You know, if, you know, I mean, the code is already in there and these things are already in there. To Mac's point, I think that it would be very easy for us to just request, and I don't think to, you know, to our attorney's point, I don't know how you enforce this. But, you know, I think that we can request through the application process that you post certain things within your home, right? The trash thing, the pool thing, you know, life safety issues. I think that that's really the only thing you can do. I don't think there's. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's really much more that you can do, other than, you know, through the application process, tell the people, look, if you have a pool, you must post these rules and regulations. And it's just like you're doing for the garbage and for the other, for the others.
In the application process, you could say if the pool in your home was installed after the year 2000 or whatever that cutoff is, you are required to post this about the self-closing gate and the alarms. They cannot be disabled. You can, that's on them. It's part of the application. My point is, you understand what my point is, guys?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just, we need to try to like take steps to save some child from drowning at a, you know,
No, I-
party house.
and I apologize, the inspection, which I thought, but the way that we did it is that the owner representatives has to do an on-site
They do it.
inspection after each of the rental periods to assure that everything is in compliance with it. It wasn't us, so I apologize for my confusion.
Well, once a year, we do an inspection on them like the other.
Not listed here, no.
Oh, not like not like the occupants.
No.
Okay, so that's my first thing. The second thing is, to Edward's point about habitable rooms, and they talked about adding accessory structures and trailers and stuff. I had on my list, adding to the list of excluded rooms, dining rooms, offices, garages, if we can, because again, it's to keep people from piling up in these houses, because we exclude, I think, what's on the list, Valerie? Kitchens, what is it, 1.6? We exclude bathrooms and kitchens and some other stuff. It seems to me we should exclude anything that's not a bedroom. So list, I don't know, dining room, offices, garages came to my mind, because you already have kitchens on there. And whatever other rooms we, you know, that we don't want to be turned into a bedroom. Now, like a family
So,
room or-
so the definition for the habitable room is a room or enclosed floor space used or intended to be used for living or sleeping purposes, excluding kitchen, bathrooms, shower rooms, water closet compartments, laundries, pantries, foyers, connecting corridors, closets, and storage spaces.
And I'm saying add dining rooms, offices, garages.
Once again, how do you enforce that? I'm just curious how, you know, it's wonderful to put all this stuff down, but I just don't understand how you enforce it. Who's gonna go in and check the laundry room?
Because this is part of their application, if I'm understanding, this is part of the application process where they have to show this is our maximum occupancy based on, and we get to see their layout and everything. We know how many places there are that people can sleep. We know there are 3 bedrooms, that's 2 per bedroom, that's 6 plus 2 more is 8, maximum occupancy 8.
And typically the village is going to learn of this through the advertisement. So they're gonna have to be scouring through the advertisement
Right,
on Airbnb
right.
or whatever, looking at the
Mhm.
space and if it conforms with that.
Exactly.
We're trying to avoid party houses, really.
Yeah, oh, no, no,
Yeah.
I hear you. I
Yeah.
just. don't-
So that's something I would say we should consider adding: dining rooms, offices, garages. 1.4, we already discussed, that's something that the state may be preempting. 1.5B as in boy, Valerie, question about that. It says, a complete application for the initial issuance or renewal or modification of a vacation rental license shall demonstrate compliance with the standards and requirements set forth. Is that saying just by me applying, I'm saying that I comply? But the application in itself is saying that I comply? It demonstrates compliance? If I submit all of this stuff in an application, just by definition of me applying, it says I comply.
No, they have to demonstrate compliance with these requirements. So they're gonna have to provide a copy of a vacation rental currently active with the Florida Department of Business. and
Oh, so I'm saying, so it's something more like an
Evidence.
application shall demonstrate compliance by submitting these things is what it means. Because it says shall demonstrate compliance with the standards and requirements. It says, it makes it sound like by applying, you're complying.
No, that says, then you, through the following submittals. And then they have to submit,
Okay.
you know, completed.
Fair
copy
enough.
of this,
Very good.
Evidence.
Okay, it's odd when you read it to understand what it means. Okay, 5B is in boy number 1. And I thought we talked about this last time. I meant to run through the video today. I had it in my notes. We don't request the address of the owner or that person's phone number. And if we cite the property, shouldn't we also be because later elsewhere we say we're going to copy the owner on some things, but we don't ask for their address.
The address of the owner is gonna be on Miami-Dade County Property Appraiser. And that's usually what I understand.
So we don't want to ask.
specified.
Okay, so we don't want to ask for it on the form? Okay. Number 6, the hand-drawn thing, I agree with. And then last time we had also talked about the idea of requiring them to submit digital photographs of these things, so we have photographic evidence of it as well. And it puts a burden on them, but I mean, they are running basically a hotel. And we have photographic evidence of what it was, if something changes.
Oh, you mean for them to submit the photograph?
Yeah. Yeah, because they have to submit the drawings. Now we're saying it can't be hand-drawn.
Right.
But submit like photographs of all those things that we require of them, show us a picture of it.
I don't recall there being any consensus for that at the last meeting. And that's why we didn't put that in there.
I don't remember talking about.
We talked about
We
talked about photographs, but it was like photographs of what and how are you
Of all the
How are you
things that
going
are
to
listed.
determine, how are you going to determine which room is which by the computer generated?
Tell them they have to label it. They're submitting basically what amounts to professional drawings now.
What do you need photographs for?
Because if something changes in-
Generated plan.
Because if something changes inside there, we want to know.
Then they have to amend their application.
People do weird things inside these places to pack more people in. They do it in homes they live in. Okay, 1.5D is in dog. Says the applications are sworn under penalty of perjury. Any false statements in an application shall be basis for the revocation of any license issued pursuant to such application. Should we also say not only is it revoked, but you also lose your ability to apply for one in the future? I mean, we said they committed perjury. No? 1 point.
Revoked for how long? For a year? 6 months? 2 years? No, but I'm saying, so.
This is
It would just be until they resubmit a valid application.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 1.6, and again, I thought we talked about this, modification of the license. They have to apply for a modification of the license in the event of any of these things, making the house bigger, more bedrooms, increase in occupancy. It's making everything bigger. And it says other material modifications that would increase the intensity of use. But if they're approved to have a house that has occupancy of 8 people, let's say, and they make a change that makes something smaller and it now allows for only 6 people per the application, they still have a license that says 8 people, but they made a bedroom into I don't know, a pantry. But so they officially, now it cannot hold as many people, but they have a license that says it can hold that many people. But what I questioned was, why is it increase in this and increase in that? Why isn't it just change? If you change the square footage, if you change the number of bedrooms, if you change the maximum
Of what's in the application.
what's in the or what's in the initial one. Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so if it's a change, they need to reapply for any change, because if they make it smaller, that actually makes them in violation of maximum occupancy.
Yeah,
Technically, yeah. I mean, I don't know of too many people who want to lower their square footage and
Well,
lose.
we're not here to decide what we think people are going to do. We're here to write an ordinance to make sure it can't happen. And not to be a jerk about it, but I mean, that's what we're doing.
but I
You're trying to guess what people might do.
But I think if we just put any change.
That's right. I'm just saying, instead of
Change
increase.
Anything in your house.
Put any
Any
modification,
modification.
any modification in
Yeah.
each one of those subsections.
It's not about increases, it's about modification,
There you
change.
go. That makes sense.
Okay. Is there a consensus on that? Valerie, 1.9, licenses are non-transferable and non-assignable. I'm just curious, what happens if someone gets married? I mean, is that an official transfer? They would have to make a transfer to the spouse?
No.
Or somebody inherits,
Somebody inherit, I think
that's in here.
if the ownership is sold or otherwise transferred, that would be like inheritance, I guess, but that would cover someone getting married as well?
Marriage does not necessarily
They'd have to become an owner,
but if it's
like a quick deed or something.
different,
That would be covered under transfer. Okay, fair enough. 1.10A, I have the phone number. We're requiring a property landline. You know, the landline, the internet phone, the only real difference is they all both run through lines that are up in trees. The only difference is that an internet line requires electricity to run, because you don't have if your electricity goes out, your internet phone's not going to work, but your landline might. But I wrote here 1.10A is an apple. The vacation representative at the listed phone number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Be available by landline or mobile phone, answered by the vacation rental at the number. Forget it. I answered my own question. Okay. D, as in dog, it says make available to the village at any time. I want clarification on this, if you would. Make available to the village at any time, requested a registration log with all the lessee's contact information and permanent address. Okay. So leasee, however that word's pronounced, I believe it's lessee. The lessee is the person who signed the contract to stay in the place. So I rent a party house here in Biscayne Park that can hold 10 people and I bring 9 friends. I'm the lessee. I'm the name that's being turned over, but there's 9 other people in that house staying there. Are we requiring that their contracts list the name of all the people who are staying there? And can we request that information? Because really all you're getting is the name of the person who organized the party and signed the contract. You're not getting all the other people's names.
They do that in Cuba. For real. Hey, back to A real quick. What happens if they don't answer the phone? No, for real. What happens? There's no, I mean, they're supposed to answer the phone. But is there any repercussions?
would be a violation of the chapter, so that would.
Oh, really? That's $1,000 fine not answering the phone on the front. Oh, God. Booyah.
Well, I believe the contract between the property, the vacation rental property owner and whoever the actual leasee is, that person's responsible for the property and what goes on to the property, just like the property appraiser would have the owner of the property. It won't list everybody who lives on the property, right? So, I mean, Ed, Val, I'll leave that interpretation to you, but I believe the person who's going to end up being responsible is going to be whoever signed that actual contract. So if, and
They're not responsible to us, they're responsible to the owner. The only people we can go after is the owner and the property.
Absolutely right.
Unless it's a criminal thing, I guess.
And that's where my concern is, and that's why we want them to keep the log, because if there's a criminal activity, at least we have the contact and permanent address of who signed the contract saying I'm responsible during this time period because I'm the one renting it. From there, police can do whatever they need to do, but at least they have a contact that they can, and not, well, someone rented it, but we don't know who it is, and there's no way to track that person down, so nothing's gonna happen. So it was just, that's why I asked that we put that kind of provision in there so that that log is kept for that purpose mainly.
And it's only upon request of the village because we don't want to have all of those public records.
So they're not turning that over at the beginning. It's just if we request it. Well, can we request to know everyone was in there? If something's going down and we're requesting information, can't we request it all?
If something's going down and police show up and everybody's there, they're going to take all that contact information from the people that are there. But if something happens where all of a sudden, you know, knock on wood, God forbid, there was some type of an assault and that person's no longer there, then we would saying, okay, they were staying at this house. Oh, it's a short-term vacation rental. Hey, we can go to the representative, say who was staying at the property during this day. Well, the person who signed the contract is so-and-so, they live in Minnesota, da-da-da. Now the police can contact and say, hey, we need to start questioning that
I
person.
understand. I just checked into a hotel recently and walked up to the front desk and they said, I need both your passports. So they knew that we were both in the room. So. Okay, I'll move on. D2 I have a window. So are we making that an operable window? Okay, good. Thank you. And this is going to sound really picky, but this is the weeds you get into. And Edward, I'm looking at you for some guidance here. Are there standards about what size a window has to be a means of egress? Whatever the law, whatever the building code
It's
says, I
Florida
think we
building
should,
code that determines that.
I think whatever the building code says, we should mimic it right here. And because if it doesn't have a, we don't need to be allowing fire traps in the village. Party house fire traps. Or whatever the building
They
code
already
says.
have it if they've gotten a building permit. They have windows that comply with the Florida building.
Lots of people
But
don't comply with the Florida
my
building
house,
code.
until I replaced the windows, you could not egress through those windows very easily. Like jalousie windows don't always meet compliance. So it depends on how old the structure is.
So I think whatever the Florida building code says, we should, I don't know why it would hurt to mimic it in that place. Just if we're gonna say it's operable and it has to be of a certain size for someone to get out, why not just say it there? Number 5, I says the maximum occupancy should be limited to 10 transient occupants. That word transient makes me chuckle every time. It sounds like, I don't know, homeless people are moving through. Per vacation rental unit, the total size of the occupiable space notwithstanding, I'm sorry. Should it say, or might it say, or could it say? Total size and number of bedrooms notwithstanding, because number of bedrooms is what we're using as a measure to count the number of people allowed in the house.
I believe if we're going, and I thought there was consensus to adopt the maximum occupancy. Of this provision, and we'll be adopting the council's language.
So did we agree to do that? Because I thought we did. I thought Mario talked to us about it, but I didn't know that we had consensus
So
on that
let's
because.
have a discussion now.
Well, let's have it, because the idea of increasing this from 10 to 12 and then to, I still don't understand the 16 thing. But increasing it from, all of a sudden, we went from maximum occupancy of 10 that we're looking at, and now it just jumped up to 12. Plus, that's not counting people under the age of 3. So the way we're looking at it is 10, period. And now we just changed it to 12 plus unlimited number of anyone under the age of 3. of toddlers. We can have a toddler party house, Mario. I'm calling you to enforce
You know,
that.
we don't,
South Scotland.
I think the verbiage in the county is a lot clearer. However, if the number, you know, doesn't jive with what everybody's feeling, then that is fine. But I thought the explanation and the way that the code was written is a lot simpler to understand. So my recommendation is use the county's verbiage. If you want to use 10 as the maximum, if you want to do 12, whatever that number is, then, you know, that is, I just think the actual verbiage is going to be clearer for everybody.
Okay, so it's the way it's explained you prefer, but we wouldn't have to use the number 12. What do you guys?
I think it's safer because the county has it. And they've had it for many years. So you have that precedent of, hey, but the county has done that. That's been acceptable. The county, I believe, has been sued. So has Miami Beach and stuff like that. The fact that it's still there, I think. And I know Miami Beach has definitely been sued. It's in the paper. I'm not sure if the county was challenged on it, but I think you have more protection that the county has those type of numbers. But again, it's up to the
Do
commission.
other municipalities have 10 or anything less than 12? I thought some of this was.
It's very wide. Yeah, from North Bay Village. North Bay Village has it as 10. Again, they had a very big party house problem. But
We're about to with the number of McMansions that are going up. Another one, I just got an email from a resident saying that McMansion next to me, they just told me they're turning it into an Airbnb. They're moving out, turning it into an Airbnb. So guys, it's happening like right in front of our eyes live. So Judy, what do you think about 10 versus 12? Gotta have something now.
It's not exactly theoretical because these people are spending a bunch of money on Verbo and on other platforms. And if they're advertising for 20, and we know they're advertising for 20 and they're in violation of this provision.
Because that advertisement alone puts them in violation.
Well, no, the advertisement does put them
But
in
the
violation
advertisement-
if they're registered.
Okay.
But if they're advertising for 15 or whatever it is, and the maximum's 10, then they're in violation, and we're going to hit them with a violation.
Oh, not the one on 117.
Just don't advertise for 12.
I think we mimicked the county, just to be safe.
Dan?
North Bay Village is also all on the water mostly. Very few aren't on the water. That would be more conducive to having huge parties.
You know what's going on in these houses, don't you, Ginny? You get the emails from residents? We got the big parties going on right here. 2 blocks right there behind us. What's your feeling? 10 or 12, Ginny? We got to move on.
I think 12's fine.
And what do you think?
12 sign.
12 it is. Okay, I'm going to move on. I have a couple more things here. So then all of that language, Valerie, is going to be stricken anyway. That section 5 basically is going to all be redone. Okay. E is in Edward. Posting of vacation rental information. This struck me as odd. I was a little confused. In each vacation rental located outside on the back, which means in the backyard where no one can see it, or next to the main entrance door. I guess that means outside, because it doesn't say inside. There shall be posted a single page the following information. Well, first of all, I'm not sure a single page could hold all of that, but regardless, I'm confused about why is it on the back or next to the main entrance door, and are both of those intended to be outside? I'm used to, like, you check into a hotel, it's on the inside of the door.
It's intended to be on the back or next to the main entrance. It's not going to be on the
back
outside
of the door.
It's not going to be on the outside. It's going to be on the back of the entrance
Of the door.
or next to the main entrance door.
Oh. Then, yeah, that needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
We will do that.
Okay, very good. Okay, V is in Victor. It says they have to include on that thing, among all the other things, a summary of the village's parking regulations. It seems to me we might want to take on the burden of providing that language to them, because if they're going to summarize our parking regulations, I think it might be better if we said, here's the language that must be included. We write it, bam, there it is. I'd hate to think how someone might summarize our parking regulations.
That doesn't need to be in the ordinance.
Fair enough. Let's do that then. VI, V as in Victor, I. The days and times of trash pickup. I think it should also say, and rule, or some language that addresses rules about trash cans, when they can be on the curb, the fact that they have to be behind the building, they can't be sitting in plain sight. I think all of the trash, sort of what they need to be aware of, needs to be included, including yard waste.
So the days and times of trash pickups and trash regulations.
Yeah, something like that.
Is there
Now-
consensus?
Now, so here's a question, Valerie, and it's gonna come up in another thing that I have, and I promise I'm almost done, guys. Might it make sense, or can you do this, Valerie, that at that point you could say, whatever language you come up with, trash, 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 scan this QR code to view the village's complete trash code, or whatever we call it.
I think likewise, that could be done administratively. We wouldn't put that in the body of the ordinance. But when they come in for the application process, that's something that staff can provide to them during that. Listen, this is what you need to post, so they can access it.
Okay, 'cause that could be a really handy thing. That way they can't say I didn't know anything, because you give them a QR code, it's available for them to, it's a living, breathing document that can, when it's updated there too.
I'm sure this is, the majority of all this can be designed as a template where during the application, they would fill out the name, phone number of the representative and have, maximum occupancy is blank, vacation rental for that property.
So
you-
you're gonna give them a form and they fill it out and post
I
it.
think administratively, we could do that. We can design, because all of this is really code and things like that. So it should be fairly easy to do. And it's all standard for every property.
Except for the maximum occupancy and the parking
So
stuff.
that can be, just be a
Couple of
little
things.
design.
Okay, well, that would even better, then that way they're doing it the right way.
Exactly.
Perfect, I prefer that. Okay, 14, 14. Well, actually, I was gonna say, have a QR code that says this QR code takes you to the complete village code of ordinances. There it is, there's everything, so you can't say you didn't know. 14, internet's going out. It says that this is if they're fighting a violation or whatever. It says that the village clerk will place the matter on the agenda of an upcoming meeting of the village commission. Should we be a little more tight about that? And these people we're giving them their opportunity to fight it. Should we say on the next upcoming regular commission meeting or something like that?
It does have that. It says the village clerk shall place the matter on the agenda of an upcoming meeting of the village commission.
It says an upcoming meeting. It could be December's meeting.
That could be.
Yeah, the next regularly scheduled meeting or whatever.
Wait a minute. There's a problem with that. I mean, what if an application comes in on the Monday before?
Right, you can say,
You set it up for the next day?
no, you could use whatever language you want to use, the next unnoticed, that next regular commission meeting that has not yet been noticed. Because as soon as you notice it, then it's done.
I think you want to retain the flexibility to just leave it the way it is, make it an upcoming meeting.
Okay, 15, notice. Notice when posted on property as for stipulation. Notice on representative. Okay, so it says, 15 says, any notice required under this chapter that shall be accompanied by sending a written notification by certified mail, and the representative and the property owner, or by posting the notice in a conspicuous place on the rental. So you're saying we can either notice the owner or the representative, if there is a representative, or by posting the notice in a conspicuous place on the vacation rental. Is that like posting a citation?
Just like code violation?
Yeah, exactly. Is that what that is?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. Okay. 16, penalties and enforcement, D as in dog 2. The village manager will revoke a vacation license pursuant to the chapter upon the fifth adjudication of either noise violation. Is this combined between these two things? It's noise and parking, it says, or any combination thereof. So is that this many of that, or combine them together and it counts towards?
The way it's drafted would be any combination, as long as it's 5 within the.
So it could be, okay. That, you know, as much as I'm trying to control all of this, do we think we should decrease that from 5 to 3 or something, to some other number? That's a lot. That's a whole lot of violations.
Also, remember, you can have both the same night. So you could have parking violation and a noise the same night because it was
That'd
a
be 2
party.
right there.
That's already 2.
That's already 2.
And so the next weekend with the new people, that can be another 2. So after, you can essentially have 6 within 3 weeks or 6 within 3 days.
Because this is the one, if you ask people what's the one thing that bugs them most about having the short-term rentals, it's the noise and the parking, So that's really more than, as much as anything else, is what we're trying to.
I think the 5th also kind of lines up with where was it? I think it's with regards to the suspension of the license. There was a section there. I'm not sure if it was.
It's 5 things. We changed it within a 12-month period.
Right.
So you think it aligns, so keep it aligned with
I
that.
believe it aligns, but again, you can essentially in one visit already issue 2. So you're talking about 3 days, at a minimum,
Yeah.
before that person can lose their license for a year. And, within 12 months.
The whole point is they need
not
to
a
be,
lot.
they need to be better at managing their property. And at that point, I'm going to guess someone probably was called and told them to turn it down, and it's. not like-
Absolutely. You could
not like
definitely
the
lower
police-
it.
Yeah.
If the will of the commission is to lower it, you can definitely do that, but 5 is not an insane number.
I changed it to 3 or 4, but 5 seems like a lot to me. Anybody else have an opinion? That was a no. Last thing, Valerie, 1.17, there's just a typo there. For vacation rentals at the time of passage. End of the first line, at the time of passage. You're welcome, and that's it. Thank you guys for letting me run through that.
I just have one last question, if you don't mind, about how we're planning on rolling this out. Obviously, none of this is going to have grandfather clause, right? They're not going to be able to grandfather any of this stuff, right?
Well,
Current.
right. So everybody who's been leased out prior to this going out would essentially be grandfathered in. However, they still need to apply to continue to lease that out, right? So if you have booked out, the entire month of February, and we do this in March, for example, correction, if we do it at the
February,
beginning of March
Yeah.
and they have the entire month of March, then all of those agreements are kind of built into it, right? But moving whatever's already done, moving forward, they need to comply with all the aspects of when this was
Right,
done.
but we have a bunch of these vacation rentals already working in our village. So they'll have to comply with a lot of new rules and regulations, right?
Absolutely.
So
Which
that's
they-
going to take some time for them to,
Which they normally, because most of them
while they're
are-
rented, is my point,
Right.
is, some of them are going to need construction, some are going to need new windows, some are, so I mean, I don't understand how we're going to roll this out, right? Are we going to tell them you have 90 days to comply with everything? Are you going to start tomorrow? Because like you said, they may be rented for the next 6 months or even a year. Who knows? I don't know how far in advance. So how are they going to come to, compliance with all these regulations in that time frame?
I know from with regards to windows and all, that is something that we are looking at from my perspective. The windows in the rooms and all, obviously you meet the Florida building code. They should be there. That continues to move forward. Should things change, they got to meet the updated code and stuff like that. question would be, if this is passed, do we then say you need to bring up the property up to the Florida Building Code and stuff like that in order? I don't know that that's legal. Yeah. No. So the operable, the window portion and things like that, I don't know if there's a clause that needs to be, as long as it is up to Florida Building Code when it received its certificate of occupancy or closure when it was built or what forth, and then needs to be brought up to whenever new permits are issued. I don't know if there's like another provision for that.
Well, the renewal period is, if I'm correct, October 1, basically. Everything expires September 30th, and they all are up for renewal October 1. They have to be applied for 60 days prior. So that's like by August 1, everyone has to have an application in to renew effective October 1, right? So could we just make it that you have to meet that? If we got this passed in March, let's say, they have to meet that deadline. But also keep in mind, Mario, that some of these places could be, they could have a lease now dated yesterday or next December. Art Basel, I'm bringing 10 colleagues with me to Art Basel for a week in December. They've already rented their place. So there are people that have signed leases now. We're probably in 2023, spring break 2023.
But I would seriously doubt that they are booked every day and every weekend throughout the whole year.
That clause in
So
there about
regardless-
that part, we have that for sure.
That's fine, but they'd still have to be in compliance because by the time that contract comes in, simply because if they rent it time before then, after this is passed, then they'd still have to be in compliance for that. So that will kind of fade through. The biggest concern is those who are already flying down or in the property, hey, okay, now I got to go through this application process. But I already got these contracts for the next several weeks. Doing most of this is more paperwork than anything. And then posting the thing behind the door, that takes 5 minutes. And all you need is a 3M strip in a plastic container to put the paper in there, and you're basically done. So my bigger concern is with regards to structural changes, and I just don't.
Right.
I know we never talked about it, Ed and Val, simply because I don't know how much of that you can actually force someone to change their windows and all this to make sure that is there. You can definitely say it's got to be up to the Florida Building Code. So if you have a bedroom and this is the requirement.
I think Valerie said you can't even say that.
No, I'm saying that you can't require that they physically change their home.
To meet the current Florida Building Code. You say we can't even do that.
But you can't do that to a regular resident anyways. So if you have windows that are 60 years old and they're not up to the Florida Building Code, they can essentially remain in place until, hey, I'm going to make these modifications. I need a new permit. Well, now you need to meet.
Or
these
if
new
they're in violation of a code because they're falling out or something, then you could cite them and then require them to repair or replace.
But then we can't put that in there because then we're effectively eliminating that room as a functioning bedroom if they don't have an operable window, is what I'm trying to say. So we need to eliminate the operable thing, or just, I don't know. Because if you say an operable window and it's not operable, it's no longer a bedroom. It basically is what we're saying.
If you don't want to change it, you can't use it as a bedroom.
Can I make this recommendation? Because it is 9:40. Instead of passing this, can we take this back? There's a lot of modifications. It also is going to give us a little bit more time as it plays with the legislation. Bring this back for a first reading, and then see more of a cleaned version, and we can look into and discuss with our building officials some of these some other items that seem to have us kind of caught up a little bit.
No, my recommendation would be that we pass this on first reading and then make all of those changes together with the changes that may be coming down the pike from the Florida legislature.
Exactly.
Rather than bringing something back that may have to be amended again. So
Can you,
I don't want to have 3 readings this
Understood.
time, like
Yeah.
we did with the driveway.
exactly. Could we, I don't know if you're allowed to do this, Ed, could you guys work on what, this is a lot, right? And get like another version done and just send it to us to look at, for us to be considering while we wait to find out about the bill? So at least we've all had time to go through it and we could ask Mario questions and communicate back to you. I mean, are you allowed to show us something outside? Yeah,
Of
okay.
course, yeah.
I always forget. I'm afraid I'm gonna like get yelled at.
Yeah, no, we're.
Gonna get a
we
nasty
can-
gram
we
from
can-
Mario
we
telling
can
me to
make the
stop hitting
changes that
reply
we
all.
discussed here. We can submit it to you folks. But then, our recommendation is let's wait to see what the legislature does before we put it on for second reading. And
Yeah, that certainly.
Then have all of the changes for one-time second reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
When will
But I
that,
mean,
when will that be?
look at all-
And when will that be? What, June, July?
It may be,
It all depends. It could be
Session
between
ends.
May and July.
the session ends the end of March, right? The end of March. But then the governor has they have a certain amount of time to enroll the bills and get them to the governor for his signature. And then he's got a certain amount of time, and I'm sorry, I don't remember those dates.
I think it's by the
Within
end
which
of
to
May.
consider, whether to sign them, let them become law without his signature or veto.
So, yeah. So
Okay, so let's take a roll call on this for the first reading.
I just,
The recommendation is to
The
do,
recommendation from our attorney is to pass
Oh, we're
it.
just not gonna do a second reading now.
Right, we'll,
So will we get to look at it, Ed, in the meantime, or we're gonna wait? You'll send it to us. Okay.
absolutely.
That's why I just don't want to have it all at once. Okay.
okay. Dante, do you want to call the roll on that?
Mayor O'Happen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
And I just want to be clear what I'm voting on. I'm voting on the item as it's exactly written in front of us, or assuming all the consensus things that, as amended with all the things we discussed, then yes.
Let me just, for the record, to make sure everybody understands, what you're voting on is what we've written plus the stuff that we've discussed and that we received consensus on this evening.
Right.
Thank you, Ed.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
yes.
Commissioner Hammelberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaria.
Yes.
Ordinance passes first reading with amendments.
Thank you. Okay, ordinance 2022-3. Ed?
An ordinance of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, amending section 1615 landlord permits of chapter 16 permits and certificates of the Biscayne Park Land Development Code to clarify the rental period for which a landlord permit is required, substituting the term housing code to the Florida Building Code, providing that appeals shall be to the circuit court in lieu of county court, providing for inclusion in the code and scrivener's errors, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, does anyone want to make the motion? Discussion?
Happy to make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
Judy Hammelberg seconded. Any discussion on 2022-03? Any public comments?
Madam Mayor, I don't see any hands up on Zoom either.
Not seeing any? Any of the commissioners want to discuss this? Vice Mayor Kennedy?
No, I'm good,
Any
Jenny.
other commissioners? Okay, shall we do a roll call on that? Dante?
Mayor O'Happen,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez, Commissioner Hammelberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaria,
Yes.
Ordinance passes first reading.
Okay. 2022-001, communication support resolution. Mario, do you want to speak on that first, or I guess,
You want me to read it?
Ed, you want to read it first?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. A resolution of the Village Commission of the Village of Biscayne Park, Florida, awarding request for proposal number 2022-001 to Media Relations Group LLC to provide communication support services, authorizing the village manager to execute the agreement and to do all things necessary to effectuate this resolution, providing for an effective date.
Mayor, thank you very much. This was an initial discussion that we had back in the budgeting season. And I had requested for this budget to be included, or this amount to be included within the budget. Yes, my entire career, for not my entire, but the majority of my career was as a communications professional, leading up to a spokesperson for and director for a government agency, where I saw more than a $2 to $3 million budget. However, that's a full-time job in it of itself, whether you're a small community or a very large community. That is not something that I can do on a daily basis. And I've repeatedly said, we're going to need help with it. And there's quite a bit that needs to be done and be caught up with. So when I put the RFP together, it's very broad so that it can provide the village for any type of communication process from that we could need. Not that we will use it all, but if we decide, hey, we need to do this, then we can. If we can get our communications and evolve to video, which is the most commonly used method of communication, then better for us. But that doesn't mean that we're going to do everything under the sun immediately. So with the RFP, we put that out in November, and we took it back. The submittals were initially due on December 17th. It was requested that it be moved to the 23rd, which was done. I then had the communications director for both North Bay Village and Surfside act as the evaluation committee. In the backup, you will see that they both signed a statement, which is called conflict of interest, stating that there is no conflict of interest on their part. You have the various evaluation criteria composite sheet. They scored all the bids in 4 categories. Description of the company, resources and services was for 15 points. Relevant project experience was for 35. Cost of services was for 35 points. And the technical background of the team is 15 points. So in total, each bidder can get up to 200 points. The ranking with 100 in first place with 189 total points was Media Relations Group. And second was my PR Guru with 175, and RAG and Casas with 171 total points. So you'll be able to see all that in the background as well. The total amount budgeted for this year is $20,000. The way that this contract is set up, initially we looked at, and what was in the RFP was to have a 3-year with a 2-year option, or 2-year with a 3-year option. However, after taking a look at one of the unique cost perspectives that the highest ranked Media Relations Group provided was a retainer in their cost proposal. So legal's recommendation, and I thought it was a great idea, was make it a one year with additional 4 1-year options moving forward, in which the first year is retainer base. Second year, it's up to the village. We can continue the retainer base, or we can make it a project base. Again, the idea is we can get up and running, we can get this to a level, and then we might not need them as often as we need them right now. And so in those cases, you would tell them, this is the project that I need, this is the outcome, you all tell me what this is going to cost. And that cost will be based on hourly rates that are provided within their bid, in their bid. So we're able to do that. And then the village can negotiate, hey, that's too much for this project. I don't think we need that many hours, and kind of go back and forth. This is all standard practice within the industry when you're getting a quote. With that, it is my recommendation that we give Media Relation Group the award, and we enter into a contract with them. We also have Alicia Gonzalez. She was just on Zoom. Yep, she's here now. Now she has her video. Before we get into any questions or comments, I would ask that Alicia kind of just introduce herself and give a very brief background. I know you did so in your bid, but just give a very brief background of yourself and MRG.
You got it. And good evening, Mayor, Commission, staff, and public that is there. I apologize. I was on my way to you all and ran into some horrible car trouble, but the good news was I made it back in time to at least listen to a lot of the comments and the concerns. And I think the first thing I want to assure you is that a lot of what you're hearing is very common. Media Relations Group, which is owned by myself and my husband, Oscar Gonzalez, who's also on the Zoom call here with you, provide these services for many cities. Right now, we only provide them for a couple of cities, and we do that on purpose because we obviously want to be able to provide each city what is necessary. But public information, what we consider public information versus public relations, is what we do for a living. So just to be clear, public information is really about communications to your residents, to each other, setting up your templates, making sure that you have everything that you need for basic day-to-day functioning and services. So this is not, what we do is a niche type of work in the world of government and infrastructure. And I don't know, Mario, if you want to, I could say a couple of other things in response to the comments that I heard, but I don't know if you want to do that yet, or maybe address a little bit the reason we went with the retainer, which, as you well said, is common practice in a situation like this. And really, I guess I just want to add the history of Media Relations Group is a born and raised company here in South Florida, in Miami. We have been in South Florida our whole lives. We grew up here. We're very familiar with not just the village, but all of your surrounding cities, and basically the unique challenges that you're facing. And one of the things that actually really made us go after a bid like this, even though obviously, there's a limit in budgets and things that we can do, is really the fact that there is, sorry about that, is the fact that there is tremendous opportunities here to work with a specialist really in your manager that understands communication. We also took a look at a lot of the materials that you have, and in response real quick to the concerns or questions that were being raised, it is literally, very standard for us to take the bulleted and the latest and greatest information and be able to, basically turn that around at a very quick pace, and also establish templates and things that we basically leave behind, right? The goal is that with the funds that you're paying, you're not just getting a newsletter or a website or this or that. You're getting materials, specifically templates, and basically an infrastructure to your communications that will then be something that you can, build on if you decide eventually to hire more communication staff, which, for most of the cities is just very difficult right now.
Thank you, Alicia. And Mayor, I do apologize. I know that I jumped the gun, and we did not receive a motion or a second for discussion, so I do apologize for that.
Right, that's okay. We need a motion on this.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to approve 12A RFP.
22-001, awarding communication support service. Okay, do we have a second on this?
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Hamilberg seconded it. Okay. Discussion. Which commissioner wants to start? I should say, is there any discussion?
Alicia, thank you for coming. Thank you for your words. I think it clarified a few things for me. I think that one of the questions that I had was that I kind of understand the relationship from a task standpoint, but not right now. I think that I understand it better next year, the next term. And the reason I say that is because right now we signed what is it, $2,000 a month, something like that, an agreement for.
Would be, yes.
Yeah. But I don't understand. I mean, Alicia clarified a couple of things. She did say, that she would be providing us templates and some structure for actually communicating, because we apparently, currently we don't have that. But I'm still not really sure what it is that we're paying for, because this is not a task specific thing, right? This is kind of you talked a little bit about, when we go forward and we're going to talk about specific tasks and where we're going to be able to say, but I'm just curious as to what it is that we're.
Yeah, so I understand your question, Commissioner. Basically, as I've stated before and individually to all, there are several priorities that we have that they would immediately start working on, apart from just the general design of what the materials would look like. They would start working with me with regards to several content within the website, right, on the various pages. We would also do the driveway ordinance that was passed, right, doing a brochure and a fact sheet and things like that, a mailer, if anything, to be able to explain what that means to all the residents and what their timelines and all that comes into. We would also do it for the construction. We would do a newsletter to be able to describe all the code and teaching the codes and the normal things that are seen. We would be doing a re-education on the garbage and the trash, redesigning, rewriting all of that from a perspective that's not technical. Commissioner Vice Mayor Kennedy even suggested being able to do like a sticker for the trash bins where, you can put it either on the top or in the back or somewhere, wherever the resident would want. Normally the top would be where you put it, where you can say, hey, for recycling, these are the things that are allowed, these are not. These are the days that you have, these are not the days that you have, things like that. All of that would be part of the retainer that they would be working on. So in this scenario for this year, I think that the village has a cost savings because you're going to pay them monthly the same amount, whether they work on one project or if they're working on 10 projects. Now, if it is a project task driven from the beginning, all of those projects, they would say, okay, for this project, it's going to be 10 hours. For this project, it's going to be 2 hours. For this project, it's going to be 3. Then you would simply see who's working on that, and that's what you would pay. And that could exceed what you're budgeted, right? So then it was like, okay, well, then I only have 20. I can only do these 3. So the retainer at this moment, I think, is very beneficial for the village. Now, at the end of the year, we could be at a point where, okay, now we don't have to do all those things because it's all standard and all we're doing is filling in the blanks here and rewriting this, and it becomes very simple. And so if it was a retainer for the entire length of the contract, that is normally where a media company would receive their majority of profit because they're not working so much on their contract, but they're getting paid the same. The way that this contract is set up is we get to decide, and they would have to agree. Obviously, it's got to be mutual, but we can say, hey, we still got a lot of work to do. We want to maintain the second year or the third or the fourth or the fifth as a retainer basis, or say, you know what, we're at a point where we don't need you here every week. We don't need you here 40 hours a week or anything like that. So we're going to do it on a project base. And when this project comes up, okay, well then, you know, that project, let's say, is going to cost you $5,000. You spent $5,000 as opposed to saying it's going to be a $20,000 bill every year. Does that make sense, sir?
Makes sense.
Okay.
So, and I appreciate that, and I think that obviously it's sorely needed. But I will ask Alicia and Mario that that we make a priority of a communication with the residents that is consistent, not just project driven. So not just just talk about the roads or, you know, but a consistent, whether it's weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever it is that we're communicating, that, you know, what's happening in the village. I think that every single resident that I talk to, and even here tonight, that's one of their main concerns, is that they're just not getting the information. And I just don't want to make it task specific, you know, something that's going on right now. I want to talk about it on a consistent basis, and not just about one specific item, but, you know, what's going on in every department, right? So what's going on at City Hall, what's going on at Parks and Rec, what's going on at Public Works. That should be something that is consistently communicated with all the residents. So I would appreciate if that is something that we can prioritize with this whole process.
And Mr. Manager, if I could address real quick a couple of things for Commissioner Gonzalez, just for clarification, it might actually clarify a couple of other things. Would that be okay?
Go ahead.
Of course, go ahead.
Okay, so just to let you know, what you know, the most important thing that you're paying for, right, is service. Okay, so you're paying for, you know, in my case, for example, my firm is 100% structured to serve government, cities, county, DOT, you know, those types of agencies, right? So what I have is varying levels of, for example, my graphic designer, right? So that's a perfect example of when we first sit down with Manager Diaz, we sit down and we say, okay, what are the top 4 priorities that we have to get out of the gate? And then I look at, okay, what are the people, how many people can I put, right, within, you know, reason? And I do want to be very, very fair and very honest. We pitched a retainer because no city that we've ever worked with that has been in a situation like yours has been able to honestly afford the amount of hours that they typically use at the beginning, right? So what we did was, why, you know, pretend we could do it that way? Let's go ahead and give you the level of service that you need at the beginning, which is really to establish all of this stuff. So an example of that is that constant communication you want to get. So let's say that the manager and our firm, or the direction is, let's make a weekly e-blast, right? The goal is, yes, at the beginning, we would have to design it and edit it and write it and get it approved and get it up. But at some point, you make it an automatic thing where someone internally is just shooting that out for you, right? So that's the point of trying to leave you with mechanisms that are fully in place and that are going to continue going. So going back to the example of you know, the number of hours or the number of projects that you can tackle. The reality of it is that a lot of what we do because we love serving our communities. And so you'll see us do more upfront because in the end, technology has gotten us to a point where we can do that. Now, do I need to have my senior graphic designer working on an e-blast? No, I can say to Mario, hey, we can, you know, do X that, you know, we can be having this person writing the trash information. We can have this person writing the website, and we can have this person, you know, working on the weekly e-blast all at the same time. And then we're now able to start delivering things on a more regular basis. But to basically answer your question about how you attain a retainer, you sit down with and say, first you do it almost on a weekly basis. But eventually you get to do it on a monthly basis, and you say, what are the top, you know, priorities of what we need to be doing? And then the other thing that I highly recommend to the village and was in our proposal is surveying. Once you start this process, if you need to see if people are really pleased with the way they're getting their communication. And do they like it? Do they get it? Is it what they needed? And if not, how do we improve it? And that's really a very critical part of continuing your communication.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Gonzalez? Commissioner Hammelberg? Commissioner Samaria? Vice Mayor Kennedy?
Thanks, Jenny. Alicia, may I call you Alicia?
Absolutely, Vice Mayor. How are you this evening?
I'm wonderful, and you may call me Mac, and I really would prefer that you do.
Mac. Oh, I like that. Okay.
So thank you for joining us tonight. And
Of
thank you
course.
and thank you for submitting your RFP. So I have some questions for you and for
Sure.
Mario, and some general comments and things I want to make. And I want to dovetail off what something that Art talked about, and that is, what exactly are we getting for $20,000 through December? So I heard Mario's response, and I heard your response, and I understand it. But where I still am hung up is that there's not a concrete list of here's what we're going to get and when it will be done. I work for a company that has a communications firm, and I'm the one who recruited and interviewed many companies and chose the one, and I negotiated the contract. And what Mario's doing with you, I did for the company I work for. And they've worked for us for a number of years, and they're on retainer. But there is an actual, when we started with them, there was the initial list of here's what has to get done, and here's when it has to be done. And then here's what's happening now on a monthly basis. So it was a very hard list, and they had, right from day one, there were deadlines built into it, and they knew what they had to do, and they had to hit deadlines and produce things. So that's where I'm still hung up, because this all seems very, and don't take this the wrong way, Alicia.
No.
It all seems very loosey-goosey.
I hear you. I hear you.
While I have no reason to not trust you, we don't know you. And so it's just all very open-ended. And
Sure.
when I look at the graphic that you provided, you know, it says we're going to pay you $2,500 a month for the first 2 months. And in those 2 months, for $5,000, we're going to get templates. Well, and do not take this as
Right. No.
I'm just, I can be a little bit of a straight talker. Templates?
I appreciate that.
Templates are, you'll never wonder where you are with me. When you and I, if we ever have the occasion to talk, you'll always leave a meeting knowing exactly what I thought.
That's good.
Alicia, templates are available free online. So anytime I could open up my Word, you know, click on my Word icon down here, and it says, do you want to create a blank document? Or here are 97 templates. There's newsletters and all kinds of things. So I have free templates in Word. I have a constant contact account that has unlimited templates. I can make my own. So the notion of having you create, and I understand that they would be, you know, templates of hours. I understand that, but it's a big chunk of money for us to have someone create templates for us. And I don't see any other than templates. I don't see a list of, and then here's what we're going to produce with them. That's
Well, I
where
think
have a challenge with this. So I'll let you
Sure.
respond to that.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mac. And I think that, I don't know if your line of work, and I apologize that I don't know that, is more on the private sector. But if you are on the private sector, typically you do have exactly the type of conversations that you're having. On the government side, typically the RFPs will say, hey, first of all, are you qualified to do all of these things? And second of all, can you do all of these things? And so that's what your RFP did. So in response to that, we're saying we can cover all of those things, right? But typically, after you enter into an agreement, and I know that based on the way you're saying it, other than, you know, having references from other cities or other, you know, it's a tough situation for you all. But at the end of the day, until you enter into the agreement, right? Technically, the manager doesn't give us a list of things to do per se, right? And have us, you know, sign that because of the way, you know, these government procurements work. And so basically you're asking for, you know, a request for qualifications. We're giving you that. And then we agree to move forward, right? We have some initial discussions. Exactly what, you know, the manager was sharing with you is what I typically get at the beginning. Here, this is, you know, I need you to hit the ground running next week. and I have 5 things on the plate, and these are the deadlines I need them by. And then basically we're putting in all of the, hours of writing. And, I mentioned, just so you know, the templates, because that's something tangible that you can keep. And yes, that's not the templates, on Word. Those are your actual, whatever your e-blast is going to look like, whatever, how it's actually going to operate, I guess is what I mean to say, right? You're going to put a whole bunch of communications procedures into place. And it's very common that and I understand, I don't know if, I think the manager and you all, and even the community has already stated what you guys think are, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 priorities. But typically that in these types of RFPs, that's how this goes. And so then we would come up with, for example, in our case, we shared with you all of our staff, right? Ranging from graphic design to writing, to editing, to strategizing, right? We don't know, right, in the order when we bid on these jobs, right? And because of the cone of silence, we don't know what your number 1 priority will be in February or March of the following year. But you're entrusting that, we can write and edit and et cetera, whatever it is that you're doing. And actually the manager gave an extremely comprehensive RFP pre-proposal meeting where he basically was very blunt with us, all of the bidders, on exactly what the priorities would be. And that's why I looked at it the way I did, because it seemed like there was a series of things. Again, I'm not as privy as the manager is as to whether you could, go back and cost these out per project or per item, or we're not allowed to be involved in that, obviously, during the RFP type process. So I think what you have to, where you think in terms of this is, having that task list and then being able to determine, which is what our job is to give, all of our timesheets and all of the amount of effort that is being put into each one of these tasks to the manager before he pays that first invoice. He doesn't send me a $2,500 check and then we do the work. We perform the work for the full first month. We provide the timesheets. He'll have an opportunity to share with you, if we had paid hourly for this work, it would have cost us X. And again, obviously we don't have a long-term relationship here, Mac, but I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, I have to say, I've never done a situation like this where we haven't really outworked the retainer at, sometimes 2 to 1, especially in the first year. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that we work less the second or third year. Because most of the time, if we're doing everything right, they want us to keep going.
I understand that you can produce a bill that would indicate that would have been a lot more by the hour. I understand that.
Okay.
Did we get any writing samples, Mario, other than the presentation they put together for us? Did you review writing samples for all of the applicants?
No, outside of the work that was submitted and within each of the bids, they provided that.
Mario, I have a question for you. So we agree on this tonight and you start a relationship with these folks. Who's going to be the contact person? Who's going to manage this relationship in-house?
It would be me, sir.
Or it's going to be you? Okay. Have you estimated how much time it's going to take you to manage this relationship?
I have not put hours. I know at the very beginning, it's going to take several to make sure that we get up and running. The idea is once we do have that initial wave come through, then the individual departments, since they will be a constant figure within our staff and conversations, then they can start reaching out to the individual departments and saying, hey, I need XY type of info for whatever this is going to be, let's say it's the newsletter, and then they can develop that, and then I would see the final and give the final yay or nay on it. But at first, we need to establish those parameters before they're able to get to that point.
Understood. So, and again, I'm going to be very plain here because this is our opportunity to have this conversation. Mario, you're going to have to spend, it sounds like initially at least, quite a bit of time, and it will trail off, to manage this relationship, to get the work going. What we're not seeing from you now is that you have the time to even produce any communication, or very little communications on your own, very little to the community. But this sounds like this would take even more time for you just to manage this relationship. And then there's back-end management on all the projects as well. So it's not just managing the relationship, but all the materials, but it all has to go through someone's approval, yours, before it goes out.
So I see it differently.
Front-end responsibilities, you're gonna have back-end responsibilities all throughout there. I see this being a big chunk of time for you.
I see it differently, Vice Mayor. The way that I see it is right now, I'm incapable of being able to establish the type of level of service that this commission and this community has wanted. And that is not necessarily going to change. Communication within this village and for any city is a full-time job. As a matter of fact, most cities have entire teams of people to do these things. The size of this firm and other firms, if not bigger. And so if we do not get somebody who is able to dedicate more time to this and to produce these things, then it's never, ever, ever, ever going to change. And so, yes, I may need to prioritize time in the beginning to get things up and running and shift things, but that is not going to be a full-time job for the remaining time that I am here. And it's not going to be an 8-hour, 5-day job. Once those projects are underway and I tell them, this is what I need, this is what you got to do, this is how we got to do it, it's up to them to then come to me and say, hey, Mario, this is what we produce. Is this good enough for us to move forward or not? It's not me now starting to design, whether it's a template, what is it going to say? How is it going to be written? What about this? All of those things are left up to them. I'm going to end up being just approval. And with even more time, it is them reaching out, and in my mind, the way that we would end up working is, hey, this is the monthly newsletter is due in 3 weeks. I need to reach out to police to see if there's anything important. I need to talk to our parks to see what events are coming in. Code always is going to have a section that says, hey, dirty roofs, and explain what that means, and all these other things.
I
And
understand, but all of this is still going to be your ultimate responsibility to make sure that it's.
sir, every job in this village ultimately is my responsibility.
Exactly. And this one is going to be
So-
another one. So, and I'm not being argumentative. I really just want to be really clear on this because you don't have the time to do the minimal stuff now. And this sounds to me like a much greater responsibility. Who's going to handle the printing, sending things out, distribution, however things are distributed, including the email blast? Will they handle all of that for you?
So if it's anything digital, that is something that we can give them the admin access to as a user to be able to do that on their end. If it talks about printing, then we'd have to get the 3 quotes. If we're mailing, that type of stuff, that is something that, I could even task them to give me those quotes, or we can look that up internally in staff. At one point, I've done it. I believe Milam has done it. I believe Roseanne has done it. So it's always a team effort for everything that we do here in the village.
I have to ask Alicia, because you included this in your presentation. I don't know if the presentation was yours or Oscar's. On page 4, you state that you worked alongside Mario for many years. Did you have some past relationship? How closely did you all work together in the past?
Well, we have FDOT projects when he was at Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. What alongside means in our business, all of the PIOs work very closely together. So FDOT, the county, we're in meetings together, but I never worked directly for him. Is that what you're asking me? Or
Yeah, just the way you characterize it, it sounded like you had a close relationship. It said you worked alongside for many years.
Well,
good evening, everyone. This is Oscar Gonzalez. I can
Hi,
add
Oscar.
to that. My specialty is construction, infrastructure. And at the time that Mario was at MDX, I was under contract by the Florida Department of Transportation to oversee all the communications and public information components for the 826, 836 interchange project. So as you might know, 826, State Road 826, the Palmetto Expressway is administered by the Florida Department of Transportation. And State Road 836, the Dolphin Expressway, is administered by MDX. So even though FDOT took the lead on the construction, MDX obviously had involvement. They had a liaison that attended our construction progress meetings. And whenever there was an issue with the a resident, a commuter that happened to come about as an impact from State Road 836, I would communicate that with Mario.
Okay. Alicia, you said something a few minutes ago when you were, I think you were addressing something that Art may have asked you. And you said, I tried to get the exact quote down. I didn't get it correctly, so I'm not going to put actual quote signs up in the air. But you said that later, someone internally will crank out the work after the templates are made. Did you mean someone here? It sounded like at the time you were saying.
Well,
initially,
actually
there's gonna be all this-
nowadays, yeah, nowadays, part of the reason why we, and I'm going to address that in 1 second. I don't want to forget to tell you, you had asked earlier about writing samples. I just want to point out that in our proposal, pages 18, 19, and 20, we provided full campaigns, whether it was for FDOT or Forward Pinellas or the Village of Palmetto Bay. And if you go to those links, you'll see everything there is primarily, if not all of it, is either written, designed, or laid out by us. So you're welcome to go look at those and ask us
Yeah,
any questions.
I looked at them and I didn't
Okay.
see links. I'm sorry if I missed links. I missed them.
Oh,
I
that's
saw-
okay. That's okay.
I see
Those-
I see little inserted photographs of things, but I didn't see any links in here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. It's definitely all of the stuff that is there. If you go to the links, you'll see. But in any case, back to your question about the internal. That is actually a mechanism that in the case of Biscayne Park, because you don't have communications internally, typically we're going to work with your web firm to see what the agreement is, which obviously, you know, prior to entering into a contract with you and you all sharing that with us, we don't know. But typically your web agreement, right, will have some sort of back end, hopefully, right, content management system of some sort that will help us literally be able to, and that's what I meant by crank it out. It basically is whoever is going to be doing, you know, any updates to the website, or, you know, if certain people are going to have certain access to post meetings, to post newsletters, et cetera. To be honest, over the years, we've seen that go, you know, all the way from a village clerk to directors that have access and do that. But because your particular village is one of the few that does not have any communication staff, or at least we didn't identify any at the time, that's why we brought you the idea of you know, full internship program, which is something that has worked extremely well for us, not just as a firm, but it's just great in general in government for
And
the
that's-
communities.
That's a great segue to another thing I want to ask you. But first,
Yes.
I don't want to get hung up on this, but I
Mm-hmm.
looked in your presentation for things and I don't see links on here. I looked at all of those, the pieces that you provided on pages 18, 19, and 20, and I don't see links. So I maybe I'm not doing something correctly, but.
No, it's okay. If you want, I'm also happy to email them, but the links or the websites were in this little, I don't know if you can see because of my virtual background, sorry about that. But there's a box on the left-hand side. For example, when you're looking at Forward Pinellas, you're seeing forwardpinellas.org, suncoasttpa.org. Obviously, I don't have there the links to these particular items, but those items are on the
okay.
website.
Okay,
So,
you said links and I thought I was going to link and see some of your written samples. Okay.
yeah. Well, you can also definitely do that. We can also,
Okay.
there's on the
Not-
20, oh,
It's not
sorry.
that's, you don't have to send them. It's not.
Okay.
That's Mario's responsibility. I just wanted, since I got the packet, I wanted to see writing samples.
Sure,
And you're
sure.
saying links and I don't see links. Okay. So, the interns, clarify, are the interns going to be our interns or your interns?
Well, we proposed it as, and again, this is something that it's an idea and it's on to the manager and your staff and you all to decide how you want to implement this. But first of all, no, it's definitely an internship for you all. What we were going to do was assist you in making the connection to and just the time and effort that it really takes to try to get these programs running with the different colleges. Typically you have to do a certain profile, you have to, obviously you have to interview, you have to go through the resumes, etc. And the idea was that you would actually have communications interns that would have a minimum. For example, you wouldn't hire these folks like for a summer job, right? Our experience is you want to hire these folks, either through an entire semester or through, 6 months. It could be a period of a year.
Okay, you answered my question. There are
Okay.
interns. So, but now that leads to the next thing. So are you suggesting that you're gonna help us locate the right kinds of interns and we're to pay these people to produce work using your templates? Is that
No,
what I'm
you don't
understanding?
pay your interns
Okay,
unless
because
that's,
you said hired and that implies pay to me. Okay.
yeah.
We're not paying the interns.
I mean, you can decide to pay, we pay our interns, but most government agencies do not pay their
I'm
interns.
asking because you said hire and all of a sudden I saw dollar signs. Okay.
No, it's
So
fine.
you're suggesting we get interns hopefully for free, and those interns would be filling in the blanks on a lot of these things and producing some of the work for us.
Well, and keep
That's
in
the
mind,
idea?
Vice Mayor, that I've not had any conversations with your manager about the future of your communications department. So if he has a plan to hire even an entry-level communication specialist, then you don't have a need for an intern. This was just an idea of, if you didn't have a plan to hire communication staff, how would you have something that could be more cost-effective for you and would also assist
Well,
the
that's why I'm
manager
asking,
in,
because on your,
yeah.
on page 21 of your proposal, cost of services, it's very clear that in the first 2 months, we're going to pay you $5,000 to create templates and to locate some interns for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Let me look at that page you're looking at, because I don't think we were just talking about.
Page 21 says the contract starts February, it runs through the
Yeah,
initial
and I
contract through
think,
December. It
okay,
says
and I,
February, March, $2,500 a month.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Monthly
think,
retainer to get immediate processes and templates set up. So it sounds like nothing's being produced. You're creating templates. Okay, templates are templates. And also get interns in place for summer. So you're gonna
well,
get
again,
interns
this was a recommendation. It doesn't, I, through the cone of silence, you don't have an opportunity to discuss with the owner what the when, I don't even know the time of the year right now that you would need immediate help, right? So it might be that your manager says, I don't want to bring interns yet. I've got to organize myself first, right? And then move that. This is just, again, a proposal because of the way the government situation works, we're not able to come in and, have full interviews and understand how to set up your entire communications department, right? We're working within a budget that you have and trying to provide you as much service as we can.
Okay.
Let me just be clear though on templates, because for us, templates is a product. In other words, it's e-blast. It's not like the physical template. It's everything written out, designed.
It's the template that you fill in with information that you would use again and again. It's a template. I know what a template is.
Well,
Okay,
I'm just suggesting that it's a deliverable, right? It's a newsletter or it's a
understand.
postcard.
I understand.
When I
know
say
what a
template, I mean, because typically you all need a look that you then are going to use. And so most of the other cities have asked us for it that way. It doesn't have to go that way.
I understand.
Okay.
The reason I'm asking these questions about the interns and the price, I'm just, all I have is what you provided to us and I'm just reading it. And that's all I could do until now. That's why I'm asking for
No, and that's wonderful. We
Because
appreciate
it
that because
says
yeah.
you're going to find I'm the one that reads everything and then ask questions based on what you put in front of me. It says in the first few months, we will work with a new website branding to develop templates for door hangers, newsletters, social media, fact sheets, stickers, etc. Starting in mid-March, preferably college spring break, we will work with our local partner schools to begin to hire and assign the interns with specific job descriptions. That's why I'm a little confused here. It makes it very clear here, looking at that graph. 2 months, we're getting templates and you're going to hire interns. And it sounds like they're going to be doing some of the work then. So, and again, that takes me back to, I'm not really sure what we're getting for our $20,000. So here, let me just finish. There's huffing and puffing going on over here. I have commissioners that get annoyed when I ask too many questions. So I'm going to try to wrap this up, but I want to say a couple of things. And you all are welcome to like read things that are put in front of you and ask questions of them too, you know. Oh,
Excuse me, Commissioner Kennedy, Vice Mayor, that's out of line. Okay, you're not the only one that does work just because you ask all the questions.
okay. So you'll get used to that too, Alicia. So welcome to, it's like the Thanksgiving family table. So here's where, it's pretty clear where I stand on this. I mean, everyone kind of knows where I'm going with this. And I want to be very transparent about a couple of things. From before I was elected commissioner, my big push was communications in this village was terrible. There wasn't enough, and it was horrible quality of what was coming out. So I'm the one that has been pushing for this to happen. And I'm also one of the ones that pointed to Mario Diaz's application and said, he's a communications professional. We need someone with that skill set in the village. So I was very happy to find him in the pile. I have also taken on some of the burden of the communications myself because stuff needed to get done. I take it upon myself to send out blasts myself. I'll send stuff to you if you want to see it, because I'm not going to wait for people to find out about a driveway ordinance. We passed one a month ago. The village has communicated nothing about it. I took it upon myself to write an email, post it on social media. People now know. So I get it. I completely get it. What I'm hung up on, and the reason I'm not going to support this tonight, is that I haven't seen Mario, I should talk to you. Mario, I haven't seen you try and not succeed at this. I just have seen you not try. And you have this, we hired you with specific skills that you brought. And that's what I wanted to see in this. So I tried to remove this from the budget in July and in August. I tried to reduce the amount. I don't support it. Alicia, it's not your firm that I'm not supporting. It's the notion of this altogether. So it's not a personal thing. And your husband and your company. But I think we have other options here. Mario, you also said when you announced to us last month that Mylan's being forced to retire, that you will be coming to us, that you need someone that will have more responsibility in the office. And you're going to ask for you're going to come to us with a budget amendment. You said, I'm coming back with a budget amendment to ask for more money for that position because we're going to need to cross train and have that person do more things. There's an opportunity there for you to try to get some help, but I just have a really hard time spending $20,000 of our budget, and I'm still not seeing anything concrete here. If I had a list I could point to and it was these things will get done by these dates, that would be one thing, but we're not seeing that. I'm seeing templates and interns. I mean, really, if I boil it down, those are the two things that jump out at me here. I see for $20,000, I see templates and I see interns. Well, go get your own intern and ask us for a budget amendment to get someone so you can hire someone that has some ability to write. But some of this doesn't have to be so dressed up. I think this is a huge solution to a challenge that we have right now. I'm wrapping up, Judy. This is
For
a
reference,
huge
I
solution.
think it's time to stop and go on with things.
Judy, I'm sorry, I'm speaking.
A long discussion.
Well, you had your opportunity to talk. Take all the time you want. I don't care. I'm talking now, Judy. Let it go. Look, this is a huge solution to a very small thing that could be solved with some emails.
Well, that's why we'll take a vote.
Yeah. So, and I'm finishing my comments, Jenny. Good grief. Be nice if you showed up with a comment about something every once in a while. Really, it would be.
Let's
Look,
move
we
on.
are a village of 3,300 people in 1,100 homes in 3/4 of a square mile. Several months ago, I walked most of this village with a team of neighbors and we hung door hangers on doors to inform people about something. This is a very finite audience here. It's this big. And Mario, your proposal is for something this huge for something this big. And it costs us $20,000, and I can list 15 things off the top of my head that would be better to spend $20,000 off. Mario, if you came back to us and said, look, here are the 10 ways I tried and couldn't get it done, that would be one thing, but that's what I'm not seeing from you, Mario. Now, I'm going to end with one other thing. Alicia, you're getting the contract tonight. Here's something I hope you can do to help Mario. I hope you stick around for a discussion that's coming up here, if we can get to it, about reporting to residents at meetings. that's something concrete, I think that I would hope you could help Mario with. So if you can stick around for that conversation.
Mayor, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to respond here. Vice Mayor, I would love to dedicate more time to doing all these things. Unfortunately, there is nothing in the village, nothing. So every single project that we've had to tackle, I've had to tackle from scratch. I've had to write procurements, okay, for items that should have been done and should have been standard templates. That is not a 15-minute job. That is not a couple-hour job. That is several days worth of work going back and forth with legal, going back and forth with departments. Then on top of that, it's, oh my God, we need to address this and we need to do that and we need to go over here. And what about over here? Oh, the county's calling on this. And now, hey, state's calling. You haven't been doing any of this stuff for the past 10 years. You're going to have to get ridden up. No, I'm sorry. I don't have time for it. I do not have time for it. The RFP is written so that anything under the sun can be done because that is what's needed. Do we need the entire universe? Maybe, maybe not. That is something we'll be able to dictate. But no, sir, I don't have enough time to be able to try 10 times to see what works and what doesn't. Okay, there is too much going on. There is not enough staff. There is not enough money to hire staff. We have someone that's coming in. The majority of our staff at Village Hall makes less than $40,000. That is near minimum wage. It's impossible. It's impossible to run and to run at the level of service that everybody wants. It's not going to be possible. So yes, I put out the RFP and I made the argument from the beginning because it can't be done by one person. Okay, I'm already putting in a ton of hours. Okay, I work on a normal basis, 12 hours a day, trying to figure everything out and trying to move everything, trying to make sure we don't overspend on our budget, that we don't go over here, that we're not in violation of any of the funding that we're getting. How are we spending all of this? How are we doing? I am constantly, from 1 minute to another, dealing with different aspects of work every single moment, from federal guidelines to county to just us. There are decisions that have to be made and there's not enough time to do the follow-up because there's not enough staff. So no, putting together the emails and putting together the newsletters and putting all this together, I don't have time for that. Like I've said before, cities have entire teams, not one person, but entire teams to do this thing that you're making it out to be, that it is a 15-minute thing that you can do and it's gone. That's not the way it works. That has never been the way it works in any municipal government. I can understand that private companies might be different, but for a government RFP, you want to make sure that you have the most flexibility, okay? Because you don't know what's going to be coming down tomorrow. And if we put, hey, in your first year, you're going to do these 3 things. Oh my God, this is a major issue in the community and we need to put all this stuff out. Well, it's not one of those 3 things. So we're going to have to either go through a contract negotiation, change it, bring it back to the commission a month later, or you set it up where, like, you know what, I can pivot at any moment so that we can deal with what we have.
Okay, I want to call.
Mario, and I'm going to respond to that quickly. And Mario, all of that would, first of all, we all appreciate what you're doing. And well, then you aren't listening to all the things I say and do. Yeah. Wow.
Okay, can we call the
No,
question?
I'm responding.
Our
This is
job
getting
as
out of control. and
commissioners is to
that
support
Either we
the
need
manager.
a recess or we need to, call the meeting.
Let's
But
move
this
on
is-
to the
this is
vote,
not
please.
going anywhere.
I think we should vote on this.
I just want to say that when we first hired Mario and I had a conversation with him, I asked him, are you sure you want this job? Because I knew the mess and the disaster that he was walking into. And to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't have taken this job for twice as much as we're paying this guy. So I know that he's certainly not perfect. But I know for a fact that Mario has a shitload of stuff, excuse the French, but he's a lot of stuff on his plate to do, and he needs help. And the amount of help that he currently has is not sufficient. Nothing is in this village has ever before Mario came here. I don't remember. I never got proper communication. So this is nothing new. Obviously, We got some communication and it was copy paste. You remember those lovely monthly, that were the same ones every single month, which served zero purpose. So there's a reason for that. And the reason is that, we don't function like a real city. This is like a condo board. And there's some people in this village also that demand a lot of attention. And between them and everything else he's got, I think that he can certainly use the help. And I'm definitely gonna vote for this.
Madam Mayor,
Okay,
can we
call
take
the
a vote,
question.
please?
All in favor of passing 2022-001, awarding communication support, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, one opposed. Okay, this next discussion is old business.
Madam Mayor, we're gonna, in 15 minutes.
We have
14 minutes left.
15 minutes. We will be adjourning at 11 o'clock. This was your suggestion, Max, so would you like to,
What was?
the swale discussion?
No,
Those are mine.
No.
Or are we going to touch emergency reserves in
No.
15 minutes? We might touch the reporting thing in 15 minutes.
I doubt that. I doubt that.
I think they should go on to next month's, and since it's been a heated, contentious thing, we should be calling it a day. I would move.
Sorry, Judy, I don't understand you.
I don't think we can do anything on any of the three things we have on our agenda. I think it's been a heated discussion, and I think it's time that we call for an adjournment.
Okay. Those in favor of an adjournment, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay.
Alicia, welcome to Biscayne Park. Whoops. Welcome. Congratulations on your contract.
Thank you, everybody. Have a very pleasant evening. Good night.
Alicia, thank you for your time.
Thank you all very much. We look forward
And
to
your
working
patience.
together. Thank you very much.